Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 511. Even a fraudulent man can't be so fraudulent. Hu Yanzhao's justification was invulnerable. After all, this was a fact. Therefore, they didn't dare to act blindly even if they were worried. However, Hu Yanzhao had thought of another reason. Senior Huang's inability to complete this task will be proof that the Jun family's strength has reached a point where it's extremely difficult to shake them. Moreover, they had what those bone-tempering pills my illusory ocean of blood urgently needs. And their expert seems unfathomably strong. Therefore, it is best if we don't get combative against this hostile enemy. We will feign politeness and participate in the auction. Then, we will take possession of those bone-tempering pills. We must focus on the situation at hand. And we must think of the future matter when the time arrives. Besides, what could this remaining team do if Senior Huang is genuinely dead? How could they possibly match the opposition? Let's pretend to play the deaf and dumb for now. And pretend as if we didn't even know about it. After all, we can't take revenge on our own even if we wanted to. Moreover, this old man was always going about his own ways to show off. He was arrogant and bossy. In fact, he didn't even give me any respect even though I'm the young lord. Dang it! Dang, what was that old man's worth in front of the other super experts of the illusory ocean of blood? How did he even presume himself to be that great? The young lord of the illusory ocean of blood was somewhat deriving pleasure from the other's misfortunes. However, this emotion obviously didn't show up on his face. They had first been made to handle the insignificant Huang family's matter when they had arrived. And that had delayed many things for their cause. This was obviously left the young lord very dissatisfied. After all, did that insignificant Huang family deserve such a favor from the illusory ocean of blood? However, the Huang ancestor had still employed these members from the illusory ocean of blood for his own family's matters instead. That was truly unbearable. Where do your family and children stand? Are they above such an important matter of the illusory ocean of blood? This was a complete disregard of the present situation. It was very short-sighted of him. Senior Huang wouldn't have died if this Huang family hadn't messed up things. I will have to take responsibility for this once we return to our holy land. The young lord then looked at the Huang family with a somewhat ill-intended expression as this thought crossed his mind. Then, the young lord said, "We mustn't lose out at this auction. A precious pill will be put up for auction at this auction. So, the amount of gold required for bidding would be tremendous as well. Huang family's lord, how much gold can you put up for this auction? I believe that there's many estates your family can sell in order to get us some more gold. After all, a shortage in supply of gold will result in our failure. And that will affect the outcome of the battles the illusory ocean of blood will fight. And that will have a negative impact on the future of common people across the entire world. So, I believe that the Huang family will not stint from rising up to this responsibility, right?" Huang Jun, the lord of the Huang family, heard these words, and his nostrils flared in anger. He was left agonized and stupefied for a moment, and was unable to say anything. "Why didn't you say this in our ancestor's presence? Our ancestor has been gone for longer than expected as of now. In fact, we can't be sure whether he's out of trouble, or perhaps, is already dead. However, this young lord has immediately turned hostile towards our family. You didn't speak up about taking advantages of our family over this auction before. But, you suddenly want us to sell of our estates since you've noticed that our family doesn't have enough strength to resist you. Moreover, this auction is obviously an important matter as far as the illusory ocean of blood is concerned. But, what does my Huang family's money have to do with it? How can our small family and small business afford the illusory ocean of blood's expenses? Let's say that we are willing to contribute to the illusory ocean of blood, but, tell me once, what relationship you have with the world's people. Do you genuinely consider yourself the savior of this land? Besides, how could our Huang family shoulder the responsibility of the world's future? Would we sitting in front of you like this if we were capable of controlling the future of this continent's people? He pondered and cursed for a long time. But, he finally couldn't dare to refuse. So, he stammered, "May I dare to ask the young lord, how will we go about resolving that matter with those three great families?" "How will you go about resolving that matter with the three families?" "The Huang family's lord has asked a strange question." Hu Yanxiao smiled politely. "As the saying goes, a man's work is his own." This was the Huang family's matter from the start. We were only the pedestrians who were passing by like a friend. So, how could I say much about this topic? Moreover, this young lord has already done enough from the standpoint of a friend. After all, Senior Huang wanted to break our laws by participating in worldly disputes. But, this young lord didn't forbid it. And, that's because Senior Huang was born in the Huang family. Therefore, it was fine if he wanted to contribute in his family's matter. However, other people aren't required to do so. Lord Huang Jun, the rise of any family has always depended on their own strength and abilities. Let's presume that we made an exception for you this time. But, what would you do the next time around? Therefore, the Huang family's lord must display his courage during these torrential times. After all, it's very inconvenient for the people of illusory ocean of blood to get involved in this. Moreover, I've only asked the Huang family's lord to raise some money for the welfare of the entire mainland and its common people. And, I must state that this isn't for the sake of the illusory ocean of blood. So, I hope that the Huang family's lord hasn't misunderstood it. But, I must say that the Huang family will obviously rise and stand proud in this world if it's capable of crushing those three major families at once. In fact, it would be a tale for the legends. Huang Jun was struck dumb by this. "You're not even going to take my family's life and death into account when it comes to paying for your expenses? What is this logic? Is this how the people of the three holy lands think?" They looked down on the society of common men with disdain. Huang Jun couldn't think about much at this time. In fact, there were only 3 words in his mind right now: we're done for. Crush those 3 great families at once? It's easier said than done. How many forces across the entire world are capable of matching the strength of these 3 great families? None apart from the 3 holy lands. Maybe the Silver Blizzard City. Moreover, the Jun family also happens to be one of these 3 great families. And, the Jun family's strength is unfathomably deep at this time. Is the young lord of the illusory oceans of blood also terrified because he can't see through it? Anyway, forget about the 3 great families at once. We can't even dare to offend half the strength of any of these families. You came here, and started to instigate us against those 3 great families. You told us to not submit to them. It was your words of courage that have brought about this situation of endless lethal trouble. Moreover, the entire world is waiting to watch a good show now. But, you suddenly get terrified by the opposition's unfathomable strength at the last minute, and decided to idly stand aside. Isn't akin to unadulterated fraud? Even a fraudulent man isn't so fraudulent. This is the highest level of fraud. Your hollow words have consigned my Huang family to eternal damnation. First you cheated us like this. Now, you even want us to sell our property and give you gold for the auction. Oh, and it is for the future of the common people? Feck this. Even the thieves aren't this shameless. But, this young lord's attitude makes it seem that he might destroy our entire family if don't comply with his request. The young lord was talking in a very gentle manner at this moment. However, Huang Jun harbored no doubts of the possibility that this young lord would lift a butcher's knife if he was to be refuted. However, this great man doesn't think anything of the common people. And he won't stint at destroying my small family for the sake of his objective. Moreover, there's still a chance that I can fawn a favor from the illusory oceans of blood if they're able to buy more bone-tempering pills from the Jun family. Therefore, Huang Jun didn't dare to make any sounds. This case was very similar to that of a certain nation which had once attacked a much stronger one upon the instigation of its supporter. However, the stronger nation eventually charged out for a full-fledged counterattack. Consequently, the weaker nation got defeated, and ran back to its supporter in hope for some backup. However, the supporting nation turned around, and started to talk about world peace instead. Could one possibly think of drawing support from such a backstabber? This was Huang Jun's tragedy. The lord of the Huang family prayed every day, but his prayers went unanswered. He wanted to cry, but found no tears to shed. He had completely fallen apart. He even had an urge to lift a knife and cut open his abdomen. Jun Moxie had barely fallen asleep when he was disturbed into waking up. Moreover, it was his third uncle this time. Jun Xie had personally arrived and had lifted his quilt. Jun Moxie looked down at his shiny white thighs and couldn't figure whether he ought to laugh or cry. Luckily, he had changed his habit of sleeping naked. Otherwise, this man would have seen everything. Third uncle, you only tell me what I'm supposed to say to this? It was grandfather the last time. And, this time it's you. Will you still come over and lift my quilt so rudely once I find a wife someday? Are you two men are fond of lifting another man's quilt? Are you addicted to this? Shut up. Quickly get up, and come with me. There's a serious matter. The thick-skinned Jun Xie gave a fierce slap on his nephew's ass. The slap landed on the young master's butt with a bang. So, he covered his butt in reflex, but jumped up to stand. He then put on his clothes with a whoosh, and tailed after his third uncle even though his face still looked hazy with sleepiness. Jun Moxie reached Jun Xie's courtyard, and saw the two people who were standing in front of him. But, he got so shocked that his sleepiness disappeared in a flash. This is too unexpected. How is this possible? You too. Why did you come here? And, how did this happen? Jun Moxie looked at the man and woman who stood in front of him. Then, he attentively stared at them in order to identify them. And, he finally recognized them after a while, Mu Shuatong and Han Yenmeng. However, both of them had bruises over their entire bodies. They looked extremely exhausted, and their clothes looked no different from those of a beggar. This was poles apart from the impression Jun Moxie had in his mind when it came to these two people, the refined and cultured Mu Shuatong, and the smart and beautiful Han Yenmeng. What is going on? Is it possible that Silver Blizzard City's people are dead? Jun Moxie asked in a rather schadenfreude tone. No. Not dead yet. But, more or less dead. Mu Shuatong snorted as his eyes revealed a deep hatred. Suddenly, he raised his head to look at Jun Moxie. We've come here with the hope of joining hands with the Jun family in order to annihilate the Xiao family. What does the third young master think of it? Mu Shuatong was aware that the third young master of the Jun family, Jun Moxie, was the key to their current prominence. Therefore, he had turned to face Jun Moxie while mentioning this. Join hands? Annihilate the Xiao family? Ah! What an awfully interesting proposal. Jun Moxie's eyes flickered. He straightened up, scratched his chin, and muttered something. Then, he suddenly sneered, we could also sit here in safety while the two of your families fight. Then, we could go and reap the benefits. After all, wouldn't it be more convenient for us if we were to wait for the Xiao and Han families to battle it out? Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 512. Supernatural Foresight. Mu Shuatong was stumped as he looked at Jun Moxie in a cautious manner. In fact, he had been somewhat shaken within. This youngster has managed to speculate that there has been a great and unforeseen change in the Silver Blizzard City. In fact, he has even pointed out the key change. I guess that you didn't even return to the Silver City. Instead, you were ambushed on the way. Then, several of your Han family's experts sacrificed themselves in order to give you a chance of making an escape. I must say that it isn't easy to be so decisive, he. After that, you must have wandered around the world, but couldn't dare to go anywhere they could find you. So, you wandered around, and eventually came here to the Jun family. Jun Moxie's words cut like knife. The Jun family is the only one which can protect you at this time. So, you intend to draw on our strength to suppress the rebellion. Then, you plan to act like the Han family has helped us in carrying out our revenge. Am I right? No one will have a problem with such a situation, and the Han family will continue to rule the Silver City. Uncle Mu, I can even guess that this is your private plan, right? But, I must say that you've come up with a great plan. Mu Shuatong was startled by this. He suddenly straightened up. How did you guess this? The fact that you made an appearance here makes it rather obvious. Moreover, how could you have been chosen to represent the Han family? Your status isn't enough for this task. We can certainly consider that Han Yen Meng is the Silver City's princess, but this matchup of you two people is still too inconsequential. In other words, you wouldn't have come here like this unless you had zero other options left. Jun Moxie shook his head. Mu Shuatong's expression changed. He became settled, and he quietly asked, "What else have you guessed?" Jun Moxie flashed a faint smile, and sat down. There are many things one can see from this. But, it's a pity that the things I've guessed aren't very good for the Han family's sake. The Xiao family has already initiated its rebellion. But, they would have needed to have control over the formal intelligence. They'd have gradually taken over the various intelligence nodes, and would have eventually proceeded to replacing the entire intelligence network of the Silver Blizzard City. In fact, they would have replaced every position with their own people. And, this means that the Han family will be blind and deaf to everything as long as no one from the Xiao family speaks out. Then, their next step would be to eliminate the people who could help the Han family from a position of influence. Jun Moxie continued to smile as he proceeded. I believe that some of the Han family's people would have been dispatched on missions over the past few years. But, this would have been done in an organized and planned manner. However, these people would have only been able to return to the Silver City if they were lucky. Else, they would have been left stranded outside in the world. These occurrences would have surely caused a commotion in the world outside. But, the Silver City's lord would have been sitting in peace inside his headquarters. He would have been completely unaware of this. And, that's because the Xiao family would never tell them. The storm would eventually fade in time. Then, they would deal with the next lot, slowly and steadily. They'd wait for the right opportunity to take over the rule. But, the Han family will be sleeping peacefully even when this forceful change of rule will occur. And, that's because the Xiao family will make it seem like they're giving everything they've got to handle matters properly. Perhaps the Han family's heart will fill with appreciation at the thought that the Xiao family is a loyal and hardworking subordinate which is spending its blood and sweat. They'd even consider them genuinely reliable. In fact, they'll probably give the Xiao family more power because of the guilt that's instilled in them because of the matters of the past. This will continue till the Han family finally becomes witless and unguarded. And then, it'll be slaughtered. Jun Moxie smiled. Am I right? Mu Shuatong took a deep breath while looking at him. You're right. You're completely right. Now, how did you guess this? Does this even require an explanation? This is how I'd handle matters if I were doing it myself. Jun Moxie smiled. His eyes filled with a mockery. You've been living in that mountain for too long a time. You've lived like a prince. You have forgotten the ways of the world a long time ago. Take these incidents for example, the exposure of the Xiao family's conspiracy, the maiming of the Xiao Han, Xiao Buyu's death, and the maiming and killing of the other member of the Xiao family members. All of this had happened in front of an army of 20,000. Therefore, the news of this must have spread far and wide in the world. The Silver City should have responded there and then if it were under the Han family's control. They would have had the Xiao family's members under a house arrest at first. Secondly, they would have sent a large number of strong experts to escort you back to safety. And the heads of the three families from the Silver City would have eventually come face to face in front of the entire world. However, you didn't receive any news from the Silver City throughout your journey. Why? The entire world knew about it. So, didn't you people ever suspect why the Silver City doesn't know? Why haven't they responded? Why? Don't tell me you didn't think about these issues. You didn't come to know about this throughout your entire journey to the Silver City. Instead, you advanced step by step towards on the path of your shopping mode doom, and fell into the Xiao family's trap. There's no need for you to say anything. I understand everything now that I've seen you two here. But, what I find puzzling is that your party had spirit and sky Xian experts. They were renowned throughout the world, and were very powerful experts. So, how could they be such idiots? Don't tell me that none of you suspected that something was even a little bit wrong. Weren't you on your guard at all? In fact, you would have needed to travel for only 2 days after that incident at that southern heaven city. And you should have determined that there was an ambush ahead if you didn't receive any news from the Silver City by then. You should have gone underground to hide at that point. Then, you should have figured a way to disguise yourself so that you could return to the Silver City. But, you people never thought about it, and walked into the ambush set by the Xiao family instead. I had never expected you people to be so naive, careless, and stupid. Perhaps you're not foolish. Perhaps the long-standing legendary reputation of the Silver City has clouded your thinking. And, that's perhaps why you didn't think about it. Consequently, you naively journeyed along whilst thinking that you were safe because you hadn't passed on any messages of your return to the Xiao family. And, that's when the Xiao family suddenly attacked you. But, I have no choice but to think how ridiculous and funny it must have been. Don't tell me that you forgot who controls the Silver Blizzard City's intelligence network. Jun Moxie had spoken this entire sequence as if he had seen it happen with his own eyes. However, his analysis was nicely in agreement with the facts. Mu Shuatong was left dumbstruck after hearing those words, and started to drip with sweat. Jun Moxie is absolutely right. And, that is a fact. Mu Shuatong and the deceased third and fifth elders had considered that the Xiao family was very far-sighted. They had taken the Xiao family to be as ambitious as cunning wolves, and had felt that they needed to be eradicated as quickly as possible. But, they had never thought that this entire calamity could have been avoided. They might have had to make some sacrifices, but the casualties wouldn't have been as disastrous as they were now. Everything could have been avoided if those men could have thought about what Jun Moxie had said. Mu Shuatong gave a long sigh. He finally resolved himself, and looked up. He then said with all honesty, yes. The Silver Blizzard City is in a precarious position of immediate danger. The Xiao family's revolt will burst forth the moment they deem the time to be fit. Only the little princes and I have managed to survive amongst that group of over a dozen people. We escaped, and have come exhausted to the Jun family in search for help. I don't know whether we have the qualifications for negotiating an alliance, but I still hope that the Jun family sees that the Xiao family as a common enemy. Hence, I hope that you render us your assistance. He took a deep breath and continued, the Xiao family is enemies with the Jun family. But, the Han and the Jun families have no enmity. In fact, the Xiao family had wanted to wipe out the Jun family in those days. But, the city's lord wasn't even averse to going to war in order to stop that from happening. Basically, it was because of the city lord's interference that those schemes were put under a check. Therefore, the Jun family needn't have any complaint against the Han family. And, I don't mean to threaten or plead for favors with what I'm saying at this time. I only wish that the third young master considers everything that is at stake. He gulped and continued, also, the third brother and our eldest princess have feelings for each other. The eldest princess lives her days on the snowy peak in hope. In fact, she's been foolishly living in hope for 10 years. She has yearned for her love for so many years. Don't tell me that you have the heart to watch as she falls into the Xiao family's hands to be humiliated and ravaged. Jun Moxie was terrified and emotionally moved. He opened his mouth to speak. However, Jun Moxie suddenly waved his hand in order to interrupt his uncle before he was able to speak up. He then gave a meaningful look to Mu Shuatong, and, this is why you've come to ask for our help. We can promise that. But, Uncle Mu mustn't speak of a cooperation. After all, your talks of cooperation don't carry enough weight. After all, deciding to cooperate isn't a child's play. Moreover, we can certainly talk about this aspect of collaborating at a later stage. But, that's only after I've met the Lord of the Silver City for a discussion on the same. Dealing with the Xiao family is obviously a cherished dream of our Jun family. But, they don't pose any threat to the Jun family as the situation currently stands. Moreover, this matter also implicates the Han family. After all, they share a millennium-old heritage and alliance with the Xiao family. Therefore, the Han family must show their sincerity if they genuinely intend to cooperate with us against the Xiao family. Our Jun family has the right to take revenge against the Xiao family. And, we also have the strength to do so at this time. But, we don't have any obligation to throw our lives on the line for the Han family's sake. The truth is certainly the truth when it comes to it from the perspective of human emotions. However, reality also finds its place with certainty. And, I hope that Uncle Mu can understand that. Mu Shuatong breathed a sigh of relief. He then said, that is natural. And, I'm sure that the city's lord would never treat the Jun family unfairly. You can rest assured regarding that. Jun Moxie smiled, but didn't speak again. Jun Moxie was this kind of a person. That's right. It may be something that I sincerely hope of doing, but I'll only do it when I think that the time is ripe. Moreover, I'll only have a single objective in my mind while doing it. I'll do it for my personal revenge and desire. But, I ask that you show your sincerity in case you wish to mix your personal interests with mine. After all, I have no obligation to work for both mine and someone else's interests. I'll only do something for myself. I'm setting about to it. And, I'll do it with a clear conscience. That's all. I can admit that I'll deal with the Xiao family even if the Han family doesn't approach me with a good reason to help them out. But, I'll only do it after the Han and the Xiao family are finished fighting it out. After all, I'm sure that this would mean less trouble and many other advantages for my sake. Moreover, it is important to know that even the highest echelons of the Han family are still in the dark regarding the Xiao family. Therefore, the Jun family may have to bear the entire burden alone if it rushed in recklessly from the outside. In fact, it might even lead to a counterattack from the Han family since it's unaware of the truth. The risk is too great to be worth it. However, things would be clear and simple if we got involved after the two families have fought it out. After all, we would only have to deal with the Xiao family in that case. And, that too would a Xiao family whose strength would have been depleted. So, why would we wish to get involved at this time? Jun Moxie knew that even Jun Wuyi and Mu Shuatong understood this reasoning. Therefore, Jun Moxie's words that, "You've come to us for help. And, will promise to do so. But, don't call it a cooperation," were very understandable. Moreover, Jun Moxie's approach had even won him some appreciation. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 513. Wishing for an unstable situation. Jun Moxie had acceded to those concessions because he had considered Jun Wuyi's honor. Perhaps it could be said that he had given due consideration to that beautiful woman who lived in the snowy peaks. After all, she hadn't even stinted to risk her life for the Jun family. Han Yen Yao. Otherwise, how were the Han and Xiao family any different in the Jun family's perspective? Weren't they both Silver Blizzard City? Wasn't it the Han family which had encouraged the Xiao family's arrogance? Would the Jun family have been blooded and slaughtered like chickens if it weren't for the Han family? Oh, and you mentioned that you suppressed the Xiao family's plan later. You want my admiration for that? You want me to help in this situation of yours because of that? I spit on that argument. Why didn't you do it earlier? Didn't you wait for the Jun family to cripple before you cracked down on the Xiao family's plans? Didn't you do that with the intention of giving some sense of revenge to the Xiao family? Didn't the Xiao family give vent to their? Didn't that mess the life of our Jun family's people? Moreover, our Jun family possesses enough strength to reap the spoils of the war between your two sides as long as we wait on the sidelines and watch. And, we could easily avenge our hatred in one go by doing so. But, when will these operations start? I can't wait for it. We could reduce the damage to a great extent if we were to start earlier. Mu Shuatong breathed a sigh of relief after listening to Jun Moxie. So, he quickly spoke up in excitement. He knew that Jun Moxie would certainly set some conditions on the Han family in the light of this matter. And, he also knew that these conditions would be very harsh. However, anything would be fine at this juncture. Jun Moxie was nothing like Jun Wuyi. In fact, Jun Moxie was a person who wouldn't act without any incentive. That youngster didn't have the slightest trace of a noble character. The operation, there's no urgency for that. It's important for our side to handle a few things around here at first. Our present strength isn't feeble, but it isn't enough to shake the entire Silver City yet. We'll suffer many casualties without any gain if we act rashly at this time. Jun Moxie smiled and continued, moreover, I don't think the Xiao family will act anytime soon. So, we can still wait a bit. Why wouldn't the Xiao family make a move anytime soon? Mu Shuatong didn't understand this. Neither did Jun Wuyi. You mustn't forget that the Xiao family has lost 4 spirit Xian experts of late. And, that's a huge loss to their overall strength. The Xiao family still has enough strength to annihilate you and carry on. But, they would suffer a lot of casualties in this bargain. Therefore, they need to recuperate from this loss in strength. The Xiao family wants to rebel because they wish to overtake the Silver City's reigns. And, they also wish to take over everything the Silver Blizzard City has gained in the past. They might be able to win if they move right now. But, it'll be a miserable victory. In fact, they would even feel that they let your Han family off easily. The Xiao family won't make a move till they have absolute assurance of victory. After all, they would have allowed your team to return to the mountain, and they would have annihilated you afterwards once you were all gathered in the same place. Why else would they have ambushed you halfway? Jun Moxie proceeded with his analysis in a calm manner, so, we can say that the Xiao family isn't fully prepared yet. This event is certainly an emergency for the Han family. But, isn't it the same for the Xiao family? You are at a loss when it comes to what's to be done next. But the Xiao family is certain to be more vexed. Therefore, we needn't worry too much since we can prepare with ease. Moreover, we can let the Xiao family let their guard down. After all, this will allow us to strike like thunder when the right moment comes. And we will consign the Xiao family to eternal damnation with no hope of recovery in one strike in this manner. Mu Shuatong nodded heavily. However, his mind had been eased to a great extent. It is often the case that an individual involved in a matter gets confused about some details, while a spectator's vision remains very clear. Jun Moxie's analysis had made him realize that the situation was indeed very bad. But he had also realized that it wasn't as bad as he had imagined. Everything wasn't covered in darkness yet. Therefore, he turned around to look at the little princess Han Yen Meng. However, she had already fallen asleep on the chair. The entire journey had been very laborious, and they had staggered the entire way in panic and fear. And she had borne the entire brunt of that unbearable journey. However, her mind had relaxed when she had heard young Master Jun Moxie agree to help them. She had thought of saying something, but had been overcome with exhaustion. She had opened her mouth to say something, but had ended up falling asleep instead. Mu Shuatong gently and carefully put her on a bed. A tender feeling arose inside him as he saw her sleeping. He then said, "This entire journey has been full of bitter hardships. But the little princess, she didn't utter a word of complaint throughout the journey. She has accompanied me through this entire difficult journey. She's very..." Jun Moxie also couldn't help but sigh. He had been chased to be killed throughout his previous life. So, he knew that feeling quite well from past experiences. But I had been through a very tough training. However, this little girl didn't have the experience I did. Getting here must have strengthened her. She certainly had Mu Shuatong along with her. But it would still have been very difficult. I need to know the exact strength of the Silver City's Han family. And this includes the hidden experts. I also wish to know about anyone who might have gone to the three holy lands from the past generations. And the same goes for the Xiao family's members. Jun Moxie organized his thoughts and asked that question. One can only emerge victory in every battle if they know themselves as well as the enemy. We've decided to fight now. So, we can't neglect any factor which might affect the outcome of the war. Even the smallest of mistakes might result in our annihilation. That Huang Taiyang from the Huang family is a prime example of that. He had rushed in blindly, but got buried here because he begrudged one of the strongest experts of an era. Therefore, Jun Moxie had planned that they must remove every threat beforehand. They would take every factor into consideration before going in, even if they weren't able to remove every threat. This was the only way they could defeat the Xiao family in one move. In fact, there was a chance that they wouldn't be able to bear the consequences of even a single slip-up. The total number of Sky Xian experts in the Han family. Mu Shuatong hadn't even finished speaking when Jun Moxie interrupted him. "You don't need to take the Sky Xian experts into account. Only Spirit Xian and above have to be counted, only the fighting strength of the Spirit Xian experts and above. Oh, the Silver City has 9 Spirit Xian elders who are present there throughout the year. Also, there are 3 elders in the Law Enforcement Hall who belong to the Han family. And each one of them is at the Spirit Xian level." Mu Shuatong smiled bitterly. "These are the numbers we have left over after our losses in that ruinous battle. We also have the Lord of the City Han Zhan Meng and the Lady. Both of them are at the Spirit Xian level. The Lord is at level 4 Spirit Xian, and the Lady is a first-grade Spirit Xian expert. And then, there were 4 other elders who had gone off to the snowy peaks in seclusion. But no one knows their exact location. Then, there's the old lord as well. But he's been away in seclusion for 20 years, and hasn't been seen ever since. And I don't have any knowledge regarding those who have gone to the three holy lands. Jun Moxie calculated in silence with a serious expression, so, we can use 14 spirit Xian experts in that case. Moreover, those 4 elders and the old lord aren't included in this list. But, they could be considered as possible help. What about the Xiao family? The Xiao family has around 11 spirit Xian elders now. There are 3 in the law enforcement hall. 6 of them are elders. And, the couple who leads the family. Plus, they also have about 5 people in seclusion. Moreover, I had heard that they had 5 or 6 more who had gone down the mountain several years ago. However, they didn't return for reasons unknown. However, a higher number of the Sky Xian experts are also under the Xiao family's command. Mu Shuetong's recalled the relative strengths of the 2 sides as he spoke. That's to say that the high-end strength of both sides is nearly the same. Both can use around 14 experts, and have an additional uncertain number of experts. The Xiao family has made many schemes, but the Han family has the profound mystery of an advantage in the old lord of the city. Each can more or less counteract each other in terms of strength. But, the Han family will be in a bit of a disadvantage. The subordinate is strong and the senior weak. So, it's not surprising that such a situation has arisen. Jun Moxie lightly snapped his fingers, and his complexion became profound. However, the Xiao family is acting secretly, and the Han family is out in the open. And, this is somewhat unfavorable. Mu Shuetong nodded seriously. That's right. So, we must find a way to inform the Silver Blizzard City about what's happening. Else, things will turn out very badly. After all, the Han family's guard is completely down. So, I fear that it'll cost them very dearly. It's not very easy to plot against a spirit Xian, Jun Moxie smiled lightly. Then, he continued in a cynical tone, one doesn't even need to move their hands to deal with a target once they've reached the spirit Xian realm. Even a glance is enough to incite a reaction. So, what could a spirit Xian expert do if they wanted to kill someone? The Xiao family would have moved into action if it was that easy to kill a spirit Xian. Why would they have waited for so long? After all, don't they have enough to battle it out in a one-on-one case? Mu Shuetong reddened with embarrassment. He knew this, but he hadn't thought of it owing to his concerns and confusion. However, his eyes suddenly shone at this moment. Moreover, the Xiao family might have an undiscovered traitor within the Han family. That was the case with the 7 swords as well. We may not be able to defend against this aspect. But, when it comes to the fight, that's something which regards the fight. So, there's no need to think about it now. Jun Moxie stood up. He looked sleepy and tired. His cheeks were sunken deep, and there were deep rims around his eyes. He was both mentally and physically exhausted. In fact, he was extremely exhausted. You're staying at the Jun family now. So, be at ease and recuperate. And, take care that no one finds out about your whereabouts. I will take care of everything else. Jun Moxie took a deep breath once he had walked out after helping Mu Shuetong settle down. Jun Wuyi also walked over to his side from behind. He then asked in a serious manner, Moxie, are you sure about this? His eyes were brimming with worry. The Han and the Xiao family had over 10 spirit Xian experts watching over each of them at this time. And, Jun Wuyi was well aware that the Jun family didn't have enough strength to get involved in such a fight as of yet. Jun Wuyi obviously wanted to rescue Han Yenyao. He even wanted to help the Han family out with their predicament. But, he didn't wish to sacrifice the Jun family's current strength. It must be mentioned that he was fine with sacrificing himself. But, he couldn't sacrifice his family. And, this cost would be even more unacceptable if it included sacrificing Jun Moxie. Therefore, Jun Xie would never agree to do this in case Jun Moxie had only promised to help because of him and his emotions. Relax. I know what's going on, third uncle. The Xiao family owes our Jun family a very heavy debt. That last time was only intended to settle some of the interest rate. But we'll settle the full account now. We weren't able to settle it the last time since the time wasn't right for it. But the time has come now. So, we'll sort this out properly. Third uncle, I've got a feeling that the structure of the entire society will change if we get involved. The bones of the dead will pile as high as mountains. Jun Moxie seemed unusually calm and steady as he said this. Then, he clenched his fair fist and slowly raised it. It seemed as if he wanted to stir chaos in the world. In fact, it seemed as if he wanted to hold the world in his palm. An indistinct trace of a densely bloody light was flitting in the abyss of his pupils. It's time that this world sees a change in its ruler. We will use the Xiao family as our stepping stone. Then, we'll point our sword at the world and ask, who's the mighty hero? Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 514. All these sins? Who will bear the blame? Whose mistake was it? Millions. Don't be so violent. Jun Xie thought of saying something, but didn't say anything in the end. However, his sentence still came as a solemn reminder to Jun Moxie. I don't want the Jun family to suffer any damage for my sake. I would prefer not avenging this enmity even if the damage suffered is very minor. Jun Xie was gazing at the dimly lit courtyard of the Jun family in a profound manner. One could see deep emotions of attachment on his face. One begins to understand the value of family once they've suffered a loss. And losing someone dear gives rise to regrets. And one can't truly be happy if they can't bear their regrets. Third uncle. Jun Moxie's face had an expression of uprightness. Do you believe that the Xiao family took revenge because of you? Do you believe that they took their anger on anyone related to Jun family because of you? The Hall of Hell had engaged in so many immoral activities. But, would they have wrenched so many families apart over just you? Would they have treated those children so badly that they were left neither dead nor alive? Do you think that you are the only one to be blamed for this? Do you feel that these things wouldn't have happened if it weren't for you? Is that why you are under so much pressure now? Jun Xie suddenly turned around. His tall figure appeared even more desolated in the dark of the night. He said, "Don't say this. Don't say this again." Why shouldn't I say this? You're anyway not letting it go. You are holding on to all those sins, and you're blaming yourself for them. Jun Moxie smiled. Third uncle, your current opinion is very silly. But there's much that you haven't thought about. Our entire Jun family has inflicted so many sins on millions of people. In fact, even that the Hall of Hell's deeds are insignificant in comparison. Even Xiao family's deeds are insignificant in front of our Jun family's crimes. It won't be an exaggeration to say that the Jun family is worst of the lot. In fact, there's simply no comparison. How can you say this? Moxie, I know that you regard yourself extremely highly. You've always looked at the heroes of this land in askance. And you've always talked rudely about them. But this is because of your natural instincts. So, I ignore it. But you're an offspring of the Jun family. How can you say this about your own family? Jun Xie wrinkled his brows. He felt extremely uncomfortable at his own words. Have I said something wrong? This is the truth. However, you and grandfather. In fact, the entire Jun family has never accepted this. Perhaps they don't dare to accept this. But it is the truth. Grandfather has led his army to victories since the day he pet his war cloak and ventured to battle. Do you think that the enemy soldiers who died under his iron hooves were small in number? Do you accept that there must have been hundreds of thousands of our men who would have died in this process? Jun Moxie spoke in a calm manner. But there was tinge of cruelty to it as well. Moreover, father, second uncle, both my elder brothers. You also fought in the battlefield, third uncle. It can be said that countless soldiers from our side have died because of the Jun family. And this fact is independent of the causalities from the enemy's side. We can reckon that millions of soldiers must have died in the total. Have you ever considered this? Jun Xie glared at him and said, "Your argument is lopsided. The Jun family bathed those battlefields in blood for the sake of the Tianxiang Empire and its people. Sacrifices in the battlefield are unavoidable. But this is an ideal destination for a soldier. How can you compare this martyrdom with the selfishness of Xiao family? Are these two aspects genuinely incomparable? Soldiers hope to sacrifice their lives for the sake of their country. In fact, they wish to pay their country back by dying in the battlefield. But what about their families? What about their children? Don't tell me that the children should also die with their father like heroes in the battlefield. Why should their children bear the consequences of their father's martyrdom? Why should they be forced into selling themselves into slavery and prostitution?" Jun Moxie sneered back in reply. Millions of soldiers died for the sake of our Jun family over the past many decades. However, the families of those soldiers would have been wrenched apart financial troubles because of the Jun family, isn't it? So, how many sins should our Jun family be shouldering in that light? How many orphans and widows were bullied and humiliated because of our Jun family? How many daughters from good families were forced to go into brothels for the sake of the Jun family and its military affairs? Third uncle, you're right to say that our Jun family and Xiao family are essentially very different. After all, the Xiao family had done those things for the sake of their hatred, while the Jun family did it for their righteousness. But this is the only difference between the two. However, it doesn't matter whether it was for selfish hatred or righteousness. After all, the consequences of both are the same, cruel and bloody. And no one can deny this point. One successful military expedition is built of a mountain of bones. So, what about the career of a military general? Jun Moxie continued in a wicked tone, this matter exists regardless of whether you accept it or not. The hatred and sufferings of those countless family members are graded on the hands of the Jun family. And I believe that executing each member of the Jun family with 1,000 cuts will be insufficient to give a vent to their anger. In fact, it would be useless even if we were to die 1,000 deaths. But what difference would it make if you were to take responsibility of all these sins? What would it change if you suffered throughout your life, decided not to marry your entire life, and started drinking wine to forget your worries until you went crazy? What is that going to change? Wouldn't our entire Jun family commit suicide if all of us were to confront these matters by following your example, third uncle? How else would you face the grieved ghosts of those countless people? Jun Moxie sneered, these sins have anyway been committed. You're already shouldering the sins that had originated because of the Xiao family's actions. But don't tell me that you can't handle the grieved ghosts those who died in the battlefield. Especially the souls of those countless orphans and widows who suffered bloody tragedies because of it. Do not say this. Stop saying these things. Jun Xie was covered with cold sweat from head to toe. He staggered for one step before he was able to stand firm. I've already said what I had to. So, third uncle should consider these matters by himself. This blame is third uncle's to shoulder if he deliberately wishes to bear it. After all, you are the current lord of the Jun family. So, you understand the kind of responsibility you must bear better than any other person. Do you think you should bear this blame? But I think that you will let the entire Jun family down if you bear this burden. And you'll also let yourself down. Jun Moxie smiled in a fierce and mischievous manner. He then sneaked away since he had said enough. Jun Wuyi's heart had been tied in this knot for a long time. And Jun Moxie had always looked for an opportunity to open this. But he felt that it would be better to let it sediment a bit since the effect would be better that way. However, that was already upon. Therefore, no further delay could be allowed. Mu Shuatong had knocked at their doorstep today. This meant that the Silver City's matter was on the eve of unfolding. But what would happen after the Xiao family was annihilated? It was quite possible that Jun Wuyi's temperament would intensify this burden he was feeling. And that would eventually lead to a calamitous result for him. After all, these series of tragedies were caused by the romance between Jun Wuyi and Han Yenyao if we were to see things from a different point of view. Jun Wuhai and Jun Wumeng had died in the battle. Jun Wuhui's two sons, Jun Muyu and Jun Mucho, had also died in the battlefield. Jun Moxie's mother lay in coma till this date. Jun family's honor and prestige had declined from its days of glory. Moreover, one couldn't neglect the Hall of Hell's heaven-angering actions either. And it could be said that Jun Wuyi and Han Yenyao were responsible for all this. Even the extermination of the entire Xiao family wouldn't allow Jun Wuyi's temperament to be happy with Han Yenyao if he wasn't able to put these thoughts aside. In fact, his guilt would only burden his heart more when they'd be together. However, why had Han Yenyao disappeared to those snowy mountains 10 years ago? In fact, she hadn't even hesitated in cutting herself apart when she had heard that Xiao family wanted to kill the entire Jun family. But why? Who was to be blamed for this? Han Yenyao. But which woman on this earth wouldn't wish to experience true and unforgettable love? Which woman wouldn't wish to have her dream love? Which girl wouldn't wish to experience that feeling of being lovebirds in the night sky? He was a talented young man, and she was a beautiful young maiden. Weren't they an ideal match? A match made in heaven? This is what every young girl dreams of. She must have been overtaken by passion upon meeting the love of her life. And how could she be capable of counteracting this intense passion in the light of that joke-like engagement which had been set in her childhood days? Besides, Han Yenyao was only 16 or 17 years old at that time. What can a girl of 16 to 17 years understand? How could she have told herself to forget her personal interests for the sake of family responsibilities? How could she think of these things when her heart was overwhelmed with emotions of romance, and a possibility of being with her beloved for the rest of her life? Moreover, she was the daughter of the Silver City's lord. So, what matter could her father not take care of? She must have figured that her father would have to go back on his promise to the Xiao family if the worst came to worst. And even the Xiao family was rather unlikely to object. In fact, they wouldn't dare to object. So, should Jun Wuyi be blamed? But that is even more nonsensical. Jun Wuyi didn't know about Han Meng's origin at that time. He only believed that she was a rich maiden from a noble family. Therefore, Jun Wuyi obviously wouldn't have had any scruples about it. After all, the Jun family was very powerful and influential in Tianxiang in those days. And which girl from a rich family wouldn't want someone like Jun Wuyi for a husband? It can be said that there weren't many families in the regular society who were capable of coming up with a suitable match for Jun Wuyi in those days. In fact, no family's maiden was capable of matching up to Jun Wuyi. However, the Xiao family had already arrived at the Jun family's doors by the time Jun Wuyi became aware of Han Yao's true identity. And things had already become irreversible by then. These two lovers soon found themselves separated by thousands of miles. One was in Tianxiang, while the other was in the snowy mountains. And they were helpless. However, the Xiao family came looking for their revenge. And they came very quickly in the most unexpected of manners. And one tragedy followed after the other in quick succession. Eventually, this legendary blood general Jun Xie sunk into a quagmire of guilt. And he was never able to extricate himself from it. He had sunk into passiveness. So, was it Xiao Han's mistake? It seemed that there was some wrong in his actions in some ways. His actions were surely a bit over the top. But he didn't have much of a choice. After all, could any man in this world put on a gentleman's hat if his fiancée were to elope with another man? Could such a man come forwards in generosity and say, "It is okay. You have my blessings"? Such an individual could only be considered a saint. Consequently, Xiao Han came to take his revenge. After all, the Xiao family's descendants sat at the top of this world inside the Silver City's snowy mountains. However, some Jun Xie from the regular society had dared to snatch his wife. This was tantamount to the daughter-in-law of the chief minister eloping with the son of a village clerk. So, how could they not think about taking revenge over it? Therefore, everything rolled on like the wheel of history. It was inevitable. So, who was to be blamed in this case if not these people? The peculiarities of the fate? The human nature? But that's even more ridiculous. There was nothing wrong in this matter. The crucial point was to see which side one would take. Anyone who stood on the Xiao family's side would wish to take revenge from the Jun family. In fact, anyone who heard the story would recommend the same. The Silver Blizzard City possessed enormous might. So, wouldn't it be a piece of cake for them to handle the Jun family? And why would someone submit to the humiliation since they possessed the power to extract their revenge? After all, it is not in a man's nature to swallow one's anger and smile thereafter. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 515. End of the Demons of the Heart. Jun Moxie was well aware of his own psychology, to be honest. He would have chosen to exterminate the entire Jun family if he had been in Xiao Han's shoes. Why would he have cared about the city lord's anger in these circumstances? Why would he have cared about Han Yanyao's acts of self-mutilation? You've already decided to elope with another man. So, why would I care if you mutilated yourself? We'll talk after I'm done slaughtering them. Anyway, it's not like the lord of the city would make my entire family pay in blood for killing off the Jun family. However, one would find that Jun Xie was innocent if they were to stand on his side. We didn't know anything about that woman. He met her by chance. How would he have known that this would bring such a brutish disaster? Is there no sense of justice in this world? How would he have known that his entire family would have to the price for his romance? Besides, how would he have known anything about the woman before he had started dating her? He asked, but she never told him about her identity. However, the Xiao family massacred a massive number of people in the light of this matter. In fact, it even implicated so many innocents. However, we have the capability to take revenge now. So, why shouldn't we retaliate? Consequently, their side of the story would make things even more muddled. This situation was extremely muddled. Everyone considered that their actions were upright. However, that's because everyone had a different perception in this matter. However, any individual would notice that each of the three parties were at fault if they were look. Han Yanyao's mistake was her willfulness. After all, she should have told Jun Xie about her identity when the two of them started to develop feeling for each other. Then, she should have returned to the Silver Blizzard City, and should have asked her father to take control of the matter. Consequently, these events of the future might not have happened in that case. And this would have stood true regardless of his approval or disapproval. But Han Yanniao had decided to act willfully. And these calamities eventually arose because she had wanted to amuse herself with romance for a short period of time. Xiao Han's mistake was obviously the biggest of them all. His first mistake was that he had butchered countless innocents. In fact, he had brought about an endless slaughter. However, his gravest mistake was that he should have killed the entire Jun family at that time itself. He shouldn't have left behind any cause for future trouble. After all, even a single seed can have the power to bring out the most awful vengeance once it blooms. Jun family had a total of 8 immediate family members at that time. He had killed 2 sons and 2 grandsons. And he had crippled 1 more son of the family. Moreover, the family's daughter-in-law was left so grieved by this incident that she had lay in coma for next 10 years. The entire family had fallen apart. Only 1 old man and 1 debauchee were left behind. However, such extreme anger and hatred would give rise to the kind of enmity which wouldn't allow them to live under the same sky as their rival. In fact, they would try to take revenge generations after generations. And that would only give rise to oceans of blood. It would have been impossible for them to understand each other's perspective. But it was possible to destroy the other. The Han and the Xiao family were able to establish the Silver Blizzard City since the wheel of time had turned in their favor. So, why couldn't the Jun family become a superpower if fortune favored them? Consequently, the Xiao family was eating the bitter fruit they themselves had sown the seeds of. In fact, all the 3 parties involved were being forced to swallow the bitter fruit they had sown the seed of. This 3-sided bitter consequence was obviously helped along by the involvement of many other elements. For instance, the Emperor of Tianxiang had also made a mistake. His mistake was to plan on drawing support from the Silver Blizzard City's strength in order to cripple the Jun family's military strength. After all, the Xiao family's plan to destroy the Jun family wouldn't have gone as smoothly if the emperor hadn't helped along. In fact, the Xiao family certainly wouldn't have been able to take out 4 or 5 generals across 2 generations of the Jun family. The result of this matter was exactly what the emperor of Tianxiang had deeply desired. But this had also given rise to irreconcilable hatred in the heart of Jun family's members. The royal family's involvement wasn't bright as day. But old man Jun had faintly guessed it anyway. He certainly didn't wish to face this truth, but Jun Moxie had taken these events to heart. However, there were no concrete evidences of the royal family's involvement at present. And young Master Jun was very clear on one point: he would not make a move unless he had concrete evidence first. After all, he was afraid that he might have to face his own grandfather in case he didn't have concrete evidence at hand. However, another major element had come from within the Silver Blizzard City itself. And that was the Xiao family's prolonged desire to seize the throne of their city. Their plan had included 2 major tactics: to seize control over the military might, and to undertake a peaceful evolution strategy. This so-called peaceful evolution was basically a conspiracy against the Han family. And their intention was to proceed by inducing their own people in the Han family's line of succession. The Xiao family could only achieve this by marrying off their own sons with the daughters of the Han family. Therefore, Xiao Han and his nephew Xiao Feng were set up to marry Han Yanniao and her younger sister. And their plan would have succeeded if Jun Wuyi hadn't got involved in the matter by accident. However, the Xiao family's plan of many years turned into a soap bubble because Jun Wuyi popped up. So, how could the Xiao family not hate the Jun family? How could they not wish to exterminate the Jun family? This was also the main reason why the Xiao family's lord hadn't stinted while using his entire strength to bully and suppress the weak. However, the Dongfang family also got involved into this mess as time passed. And the Xiao family's strength suffered a major decline as a result. Therefore, their plan to seize the military power was forced to a stop for some time. And this stayed the same for nearly 10 years. However, the Han family's other daughter Han Yenmeng also grew up to become an adult during this period of 10 years. Therefore, their plan of peaceful evolution got an opportunity to recur. But it's a pity that God's plan supersedes our own. Their delegation to the southern heaven city was faced with many unforeseen events. The third and the fifth elder hailed from the Han family. However, the developments on that trip had made them realize that their age-old brothers from the Xiao family had been conspiring behind their back this entire time. This obviously meant that the Xiao family's peaceful evolution tactics were doomed for failure. In fact, even their plan to seize the throne was no longer a secret. Therefore, they had only one alternative left, to lie in ambush out of desperation. And all of this had happened because of the Jun family. The Xiao family's arrangements were eventually successful in this instance. And they were able to keep the upper echelons of the Han family in the dark. Moreover, only 2 of the Han family's members were lucky enough to escape that besiege, Mu Shuetong and Han Yenmeng. Jun Moxie and Han Yenyao would come out as the victims if one were to analyze everything that was mentioned above. After all, they were the victims of the Xiao family's power and anger. Jun Moxie had only heard her name, and had never gotten to meet her in person. However, he already had a rough idea what Han Yenyao, his third aunt's temperament, would be like. She was sure to be a very daring and unique woman. Otherwise, she would have never dared to do those things. Therefore, Jun Moxie could guess that she would probably slash off her neck if she were to find out about Jun Wuyi's remorse over his family's sufferings. I persistently waited for you for so many years. I didn't stint to risk my life for your sake. I didn't even hesitate to go against my family for your sake. I only thought about you. This chaos has finally settled down, and I was finally able to meet you again. I had always dreamed that everything would be wonderful once we'd reunite. I had hoped for conjugal bliss. But why did you have to say, we can't be together because I feel guilty over what my family has had to suffer? What is this shit? Everyone knows that you have suffered, but didn't I suffer too? Therefore, it was necessary for Jun Moxie to untie this matter for Jun Wuyi. This affectionate couple was probably the source of all these misfortunes, everything. But this entire guilt mustn't be put on their hands. After all, this notion of guilt is the heavens' way of toying with men. The heavens deliberately manipulates situations, and implicates guilt on men for its private amusement. Even a peerless man can become unwise if he starts to harbor sentiments of guilt. Moreover, such an individual often starts to overthink things that weren't even their fault. And this leads the said individual to blame themselves for things that weren't even their doing. Consequently, Jun Wuyi would have brought another tragedy upon himself if Jun Moxie hadn't untied this knot for him before the Silver City's matter was sorted out. The timing was unsuitable tonight. But Jun Moxie had no other choice. There was no need to explain much on this point. After all, Jun Wuyi's mind had spiraled into chaos after Mu Shuetong and Han Yenyao had come looking for help. Many things had become clear, and it had become extremely difficult for Jun Wuyi to calm his thoughts. In fact, he couldn't prevent himself from thinking about landing a fatal blow to the Xiao family, and rescuing Han Yenyao thereafter. However, it would have been hard for him to turn around that dead end if that knot of his heart hadn't been untied by then. After all, his heart would have been brimming with the feeling of guilt and atonement. So, he could have easily made irrational mistakes for the sake of his atonement. Therefore, Jun Moxie needed to dispel these thoughts from his mind before they arose again. Otherwise, it could be reckoned that Jun Wuyi's temperament would have doomed him in case it had persisted. This task would have obviously been far beyond the reach of this insignificant character named Jun Moxie in that case. In fact, Even the author would have failed to straighten out this mess if he were to show up in person. Tonight was certainly not the most suitable time, but it was the last chance. The guilt of one's heart can only be cured with a stronger guilt. So, there was only one way to cure these kinds of heartfelt guilt, the medicine of a stronger guilt. Jun Xie felt guilty for his sins in this instance. So, wouldn't it make sense to make him feel even more guilt over something else? Therefore, it was necessary to tell him that the glorious reputation of his past was also built on grave sins. Consequently, he was informed that he had committed endless sins the entire time. In fact, his entire family had committed countless sins over the generations in their line of work. One would be able to see this angle if they were to read this. But, one would be doomed to feel a twinge of guilt if they couldn't read this. However, Jun Moxie would run out of methods if this didn't wake Jun Xie out of his trance. Therefore, Jun Moxie left once he was finished talking. And that's because Jun Xie needed some time to calm down and think carefully. He needed to think clearly. In fact, all the wealthy people in the world, all the great people in history, gained power and reputation on the foundation laid by their sins. This is true for every king. And, even more so for a monarch. One country's peace and prosperity is bound to be established over another. It always builds its foundation on the sorrow and misery of many. Peace always comes after the war. Let's assume that someone is doing business. But, rival businesses will always try to cheat their counterparts. The shrimp will eat the small water plants. The small fish will eat the shrimp. The big fish will eat the small fish. Then, there's that frightening shark. There's always many losers in the world of business. People commit suicide. They go bankrupt. They lose a family worth of fortune. They squander their property. They fight and scheme against each other. They try to annex each other's business. And, this continues till someone emerges the winner with enough wealth to satisfy the needs of a nation. It's pretty similar to a game of Monopoly if one looks at it. In fact, even this would be far from the end of this game of business. After all, this business battle would probably just pave the way to the next one. And, this wealthy winner of the first game of Monopoly would likely become the stepping stone in the next round. This is the very reason why no one should sit idly. After all, who would cling on to their riches if there would be no pickpockets around? How would the wise police authorities be established if there are no criminals in the society? How would the honest men manifest if there are no corrupt officials running amok? How many rabbit does a young tiger eats? Is the rabbit guilty? Should the tiger eat till his belly is fully satisfied? The weak becomes prey of the strong. And, the strong is always honored. This is how the world works. This is the fact. Anyone will realize this if they try to see with clarity. But, one won't be able to understand this if they don't possess clarity. There are always two sides to a thing. After all, people always have their own viewpoints. Pick up any book for instance. The protagonist will always seem correct when one sees things from the perspective of the protagonist. In fact, the protagonist will even appear very bright and frank. But, one will feel that even the villain was correct if they think from the said villain's point of view. So, don't read a book to find happiness. Instead, try to find the tyranny. The young master Jun Moxie was done with his admonishing. So, he patted his buttocks in a carefree manner, and went back to get some sleep. However, Third Master Jun Xie remained standing in the cold and windy night like a silly imbecile as the night dew continued to fall on his tall figure. The sky had begun to brighten by this time. Jun Xie's entire body was exposed to the dew. His head was covered in hoarfrost. His eyes appeared confused, and his brows were wrinkled. He seemed to be lost in bitter thoughts, and his body was standing motionlessly. The moon had descended, and color of the sky had gradually begun to brighten. Therefore, the people inside the Jun residence had also started to wake up one by one. Then, they started to bustle about. However, they'd take a look at Third Master Jun, and would see that his entire body was getting drenched in dew while he stood motionless. So, no one would dare to disturb him by asking why. Instead, they'd tiptoe past him, and would slip away from one side to another. The sun was gradually rising. The golden sun rays eventually broke past the dense fog, and shot into the courtyard in front of Jun Wuyi's eyes. Ha ha ha! Jun Wuyi suddenly burst into laughter. In fact, he laughed so crazily that his eyes filled with tears. He then crouched on the ground, and started to beat the ground with his hands. However, he continued to laugh wildly still. He was laughing crazily and willfully. His usually emotionless face had turned red from laughing excessively. In fact, his body was trembling from all the laughter. His eyes had even started to flow with tears because of it. However, it didn't seem like he was going to stop. Ha ha! So, this is what it is about. There's nothing completely right or wrong in this world. The hero of this country is no more than a sinner in the other country. Therefore, I only need to be worthy of my own family. Everything is okay if I can live with myself. After all, why should I care so much if I haven't let my own conscience down? He was still laughing like a madman. His entire face was smeared with tears. Then, he suddenly knelt down to the ground with a slam, and faced the east, eldest brother, second brother. And, my brothers in arms. Wu Yi had managed to live on. Are you happy for your third brother? Haha, don't worry. I'll treat your children like my own. I will strive hard to make up for it. I will try hard to do something about their lives. But, I won't do it for anyone else. I will only do it for own conscience. He heavily thumped his head down on the ground. Then, he slowly stood up, faced the morning sun, and screamed. It seemed as if this scream had marked the end of 10 years of gloom and depression. Old man Jun comfortably looked on from a distant place. He then stroked his beard to lean towards one side as he said, "Has he finally figured it out?" Jun Moxie stood by his side. He smiled in a mischievous manner as he said, "It seems like he's figured it out. He has finally figured it out. Well then, it is good. It is good to figure things out." Grandfather Jun nodded again and again. He appeared very satisfied. The knot in Jun Wuyi's heart had always been old man Jun's greatest worry. But, he had no means to solve this issue. Old man Jun had always remained calm on the surface, but he had always been very worried in his heart. So, he couldn't help but feel happy when he saw that his son had finally accepted things and moved on. "What trick did you use?" "I had also tried in the past. But, they didn't seem to work." Old man Jun asked out of interest. "I didn't use any tricks. I only told him the truth." Jun Moxie seemed very pleased with himself. Therefore, he smiled in delight as he said, "I basically told third uncle that, the 6 of you generals from our family have fought in many wars. So, you've obviously ruined and stripped apart countless human lives. And, which of those countless soldiers didn't leave behind a widow or orphan children? So, how would you redeem yourself from all those sins if they were to be accounted for at once?" Then, third uncle realized this. "Haha. It is true. Ah. All those were sins." Grandfather Jun hadn't expected to hear this. He then pensively looked up to the sky with his hands clasped behind his back. He then sighed, "Countless orphans and widows, ah." Grandfather Jun hadn't even completed his sentence when he suddenly placed his hands behind his back in a seemingly discontented and saddened manner. He then walked away. Jun Xie was struck dumb by this. Crap. No way, right? I've barely fixed the one over there. Don't tell me that I have to fix another one over here. The young master followed after his grandfather with eyes full of anxiety. But he got kicked in the backside by the old man instead. Get lost. Why on earth are you following me? Do you think that you are capable of bewitching me like you did with your third uncle? What could you possibly say for that to happen? Jun Xie laughed mischievously as his heart suddenly calmed down. Then, he squinted his eyes, and took out a tiny jade bottle. Grandfather, you misunderstood. I was following after you to tell you that you need to eat this supplement. Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 516. The second prince wants to scramble over the herbs. What is this thing? Old man Jun tightly grabbed the bottle in the palm of his hands as he asked. He knew that his grandson wouldn't give him some ordinary item. Therefore, it wasn't necessary for him to know the facts of the matter beforehand. And so, he took the bottle first. This is the vitality linkage pill, Jun Xie replied in a mysterious manner. Taking one pill can increase the speed of the xian qi's flow in your meridians by 3 times. Can this supplement genuinely speed up the xian qi flow by 3 times? Is it such a legendary thing? Old man Jun's eyes suddenly opened wide. It does, in theory. Jun Xie scratched his head. How is it possible? This kind of thing exists on this earth. Old man Jun was thoroughly astonished. In fact, he was so shocked that he couldn't even think of anything. You should find a place to absorb its efficacy. Take the solitary falcon along for safety. There are 2 pills in this. One for each of you. Give him the second one when you're finished consuming the first one. It should be enough to act as compensation for keeping guard. After all, we obviously can't order him around like a servant of the family, Jun Xie suggested. Okay, I will go at once. Old man Jun stared at him. You little bastard, why didn't you give this amazing thing to me earlier as your filial piety if you had it with you? I could have put up a great and powerful show in last night's fight. Ah, that would have been a great fight. When would I get such great chance again? Jun Xie's head started to sweat. No, I couldn't dare to give you this earlier. In fact, merely listening to your words has given me a scare. It's fortunate that I didn't give you this pill yesterday night. Otherwise, you would have gotten yourself finished like a flash sale if you had gone up to fight. That man was even stronger than the great master level. So, even a 3-fold increase in the speed of your xian qi wouldn't have been enough. That's disgraceful. What nonsense are you spewing? You think your grandfather can't handle himself? Old man Jun got agitated. Old man Jun knew perfectly well that it was needless to mention about the prospect of him facing off against Huang Taiyang. But Jun Xie had mentioned it out aloud. And this had injured old man Jun's self-esteem to some extent. After all, his donghua grandson had laid his failings bare. Jun Xie cried out in fear, and disappeared with a whooshing sound. Old man Jun ferociously spat on the ground, and said, You donghua thing. You ought to know who you're talking to. I'm your grandfather. He then went ahead to look for solitary falcon in excitement. The rest was rather simple to explain. The 2 excited old men animatedly went to find a secret place in order to upgrade their strengths. The people from the illusory ocean of blood didn't come knocking on their door for the several days that followed. The people from the Silver Blizzard City didn't show up either. And Tian Xiang's royal family showed no signs of movement as per usual. Therefore, Jun Xie sensed that the situation of restlessness had temporarily settled down. So, he felt happy about it, and decided to immerse himself in his work. However, he didn't spend much time in his alchemic work. Instead, he mostly put his efforts in trying to allure the beautiful women with his supposedly romantic talks. But his obscenities were met with cold shoulders. And he was left to feel very dejected as a result. However, the magnificent jewel halls people visited several times during these days. But Mu Shuetong and Han Yen Meng had been hidden by the Jun family in an efficient manner. Therefore, they weren't able to discover those two. And so, they had no choice but to bid farewell and leave. Moreover, the Jun family was no longer the kind of force the magnificent jewel hall could roll between their fingers at a moment's thought. So, how could they have dared to act rashly? Princess Ling Meng had also visited several times in order to meet Yi Gu Han. But she never met Jun Moxie. However, Guan Qing Han told Jun Moxie that Princess Ling Meng lost a lot of weight. She had also become very silent, and her face had seemingly become layered with worries. In fact, she had seemed very different from before. She used to be good friends with Dugu Xiao Yi and Sun Xiao Mei. But she hadn't been interacting with these two women of late for reasons unknown. Jun Moxie mere frowned when he heard about it. However, he didn't take it seriously, and returned to his work. Little girl Dugu Xiao Yi obviously couldn't abstain from running to the Jun family's residence from time to time. However, the little girl's eyeballs would inevitably seem to be dripping wet when she'd come over to see Guan Qing Han. She would generally have 3 to 5 different questions for Guan Qing Han. But those questions would always revolve around the same topic. For instance, did you cook it yesterday? Guan Qing Han would usually be left to flush with anger at the end of it. This had made it rather obvious that the little girl's evil intentions hadn't subsided yet. She was still wishing for an opportunity to cook rice. Jun Wuyi's state of mind had undergone a sudden and drastic change. Even his facial features had also transformed rather heavily. He was particularly active these days. He had personally taken charge of Jun family's affairs. He had even prepared a list of people who were to be invited in the adoption ceremony. Fatty Tang was also busy with the intensive preparations for the auction. And it could be estimated that it would happen in a day or two. However, something happened suddenly this morning. In fact, it was an unexpected and huge event. This event had even aroused extensive attention from all the influential families of the capital. Even the Xian families which had come from faraway places were left stunned by this. And that was because this matter had once again been related to the most trending talk of the capital, third young master Jun. This incident happened at the south gate of Tianxiang's capital. And the other party involved was the second prince's well-known companion from the Qing family, young master Cheng De Chao. This incident wouldn't have been a big deal if this was everything there had been to the matter. But the worst had come to worst. But he had also brought the second prince along with him over this matter. It was no secret that someone was bringing large quantities of herbs to the Tianxiang city from the southern Heaven City. In fact, Tianxiang city's medicine tycoons and merchants had been waiting for this with their sleeves rolled up for action. News had been coming over from time to time regarding this shipment of herbs. And it was being said that this batch of herbs even contained millennium-old ginsengs, top-notch vermilion fruits, tricolored mushrooms, and many other rarely seen and precious herbs. Moreover, figwort roots, purple zoysia vines, unwitherable flowers, water nephrites, and many more of such treasures were also said to present therein. This much would have still been fine. But the real terror lay in the fact that each of the herbs in this batch was legendary in its own merit. These herbs were items which had existed in the legends. However, they had only seemed illusionary to anyone who had tried to look for them. They were said to exist, but remained absent nonetheless. In fact, it was said that they could an individual immortal. That immortality part was obviously an over-exaggeration of facts. but they could certainly grant a longer lifespan. However, the things that had only existed in the legends were finally materializing before people's eyes. Moreover, their quantity wasn't very less either. How could this news not excite the hearts of people? Everyone's senses had been battered by a frightening wave of self-interest. And they had obviously overlooked some basic things in their greed. Such as, who owned these herbs? What kind of a background would such a person or party have? Young Master Cheng Chao obviously presented this good news to the second prince the moment he received it. After all, this was a good opportunity to flatter the second prince. Besides, the second prince had surely been bragging about his prowess in the sheets over the past few years. But his body had somewhat been deficit in that respect. The second prince had never said anything about it, but he had always felt bitter from within. After all, lacking vitality was something that could even terrify the most awe-inspiring of men. Therefore, the second prince had never raised his head in front of his wife. Basically, he hadn't been able to raise the head which stood above his neck since he couldn't raise the one below his waist. However, it was believed that these legendary herbs could cure every defect. So, it was possible that his golden weapon wouldn't fall before the battle as usual. Instead, it would exhibit its great grandeur. In fact, there was a possibility that it would show such awe-inspiring might that his wife may not even be able to retaliate in the face of its prestige. Henceforth, he may even be able to woo the women in a fair and authoritative manner. This defect wasn't visible from the outside, but the fact was, he felt inferior among the other men wherever he went. And this was especially true when a bunch of men gathered together to talk. After all, wouldn't the topics revolve around? And he would obviously suffer much embarrassment if he didn't know what he was supposed to say. After all, a man could only raise his head once the thing below could be lifted. Therefore, the second prince's eyes turned blue when he heard this news. And he immediately issued the highest command: get me those herbs at any cost. Use silver to get them, use gold, use beautiful woman, use power and status to press them down. Steal and fight over it if nothing else works. But get those herbs which can induce the desired raising effect. Do anything and everything. Don't stint from spending extra money. Go to any length to get those things for me. This kind of task was naturally handed to Cheng Chao since he was capable of handling this properly. It must be mentioned that even the most trusted advisories of the second prince weren't aware that he suffered from this defect. And how would this royal prince be able to show his face if this news spread out by mistake? Therefore, this was something that other people simply mustn't know anything about. The reason why Cheng Chao was aware of this matter rested in a certain incident. They had gone for hunting outside the city. And the second prince had to urgently urinate. So, Cheng Chao stood guard while the prince was urinating. And this was when Cheng Chao accidentally found out about this thing. And that's because he hadn't heard the loud sound that is usually produced when a torrent rushes forth. Instead, the sounds had resembled the noiseless trickling of a slender stream. Cheng Chao had gotten extremely curious at that time. So, he had sneakily stretched his neck to glance at the second prince. And he was surprised to see that second prince's sword looked very dejected. It couldn't even stand up to task of urinating in a proper manner. It was merely trickling the liquid out in a small stream. It seems that the second prince's weapon can't stand tall. In fact, I'm afraid that he might end up peeing in his pants. Consequently, Cheng Chao knew about the second prince's defect. And he had been very mindful about this aspect ever since. Therefore, young Master Cheng instantly knew that it was a perfect opportunity when he heard about the news of these herbs. It must be said that Cheng Chao wasn't 100% idiot. He made discreet inquiring about the two people who were coming over to deliver these herbs, and found out that they weren't to be trifled with. No kidding. How would those two men be capable of coming this far if it weren't rough and tough? Wouldn't they have been hacked into two before they had even covered half the route? It's understandable if you two shouldn't be messed with. But, you people are still coming to deliver those herbs to Tianxiang City. And, people come to this place to seek money, or to seek a government official, or possibly to meet someone. Why else would you people travel so far to get here? There's a chance that you people may not be here for these reasons either. But, let's come back to the main point here. You people may be strong, but this is Tianxiang City. And, who is the biggest authority around here? The Emperor of Tianxiang Empire is obviously the greatest. But, the Emperor's son can represent the Emperor. This is akin to a god asking two country blokes to present a gift in offering. How could they dare to refuse? Even someone with the courage of a leopard can't. You dare not say no. Believe it, or we'll destroy your 9 generations. Therefore, Cheng Dechao felt very confident since he believed that this matter was easy, and could be handled without much effort. In fact, he believed that he could merely stretch his hand and grab what he needed. This task was dedicated to the second prince, but it would count as a great service. However, he had still brought many experts along with him from the second prince's mansion. After all, this would help in dealing with any possible contingencies. There's no harm in taking more people even if we are dealing with amateurs. These people may believe that they can handle 10 enemies. But, can they deal with 100 enemies? This is my turf, and I make the rules here. However, young Master Cheng had overlooked one aspect in this matter. Moreover, it was a very important aspect. His ideas and opinions made sense on normal days. There weren't many problems with them. In fact, they could even be considered as very pragmatic. But, exceptions have always existed in this world. The Emperor of Tianxiang Empire was obviously eminent and unapproachable for common people. However, there existed some individuals who didn't an emperor as much. Such people would obviously pay no attention to the emperor's son. And, he would merely be like that dog on the sidewalk to such people. Young Master Cheng merrily patrolled the gate of the city in a very haughty manner for 2 days. In fact, he had been arrogantly ordering people about by using his mere facial gestures out of complacency. But, young Master Cheng was completely unaware that he was waiting for 2 undefeatable angels of death. And, that's because even the Emperor of Tianxiang couldn't hope to look these 2 individuals in the eye. In fact, they were the kind of existence he would have to look up to. The weather was particularly very clear and sunny on this day. And, the sun was shining brightly in the sky. Young Master Cheng's mood was also very delightful. In fact, he almost wanted to sing loudly in order to vent out his excitement. His Highness the Second Prince had personally arrived here on this day. After all, the good news hadn't come for several days in a row. Therefore, the Second Prince had gotten very impatient and anxious. He was unable to resist the anxiety of attaining his awe-inspiring vitality in the end. Therefore, he decided to come in while flying on his horse. It seemed that he was here to express gratitude towards Cheng Dechao for his toil, and the meritorious service that he was providing. However, he had arrived to see the progress in the matter in reality. Did those 2 men arrive yet? Why haven't they arrived yet? The second prince valiantly jumped down from his horse, and affectionately patted Cheng Dechao on his shoulders. Cheng Dechao was overwhelmed by this gesture from the second prince. Then, the second prince moved closer to his ears while he was reveling in the excitement, and asked, "Why haven't they arrived yet?" Cheng Dechao assured him with confidence, "Second prince, don't worry. And, please be relaxed. Our reliable source states that they will arrive today." "Good. It is great." This prince was very worried. The second prince smiled heavily. He was evidently unable to hide his excitement. In fact, he again patted Qing De Chao on his shoulder and said, "This must be exhausting for you. This prince will also not leave since the herbs will arrive today. I will also wait here with senior official Cheng for some moment. After all, I will also obtain some knowledge and experience about these exceptionally precious things. Someone get some dishes and drinks to sate this prince and young Master Cheng's mouths." Second price, you are so polite. How can this man dare to accept such generosity from the second prince? Cheng De Chao's eyes squinted to slits from excitement. In fact, he felt as if his bones had become a little lighter. "Oh, those are mere words of flattery," the second prince made a face. "Senior official Cheng, how can you say such things? You're saying out of politeness. Wouldn't it mean that you consider this prince as a stranger? And that upsets this prince." Yes. You're right. Your Highness, you are right. This lowly man. He was mistaken." Qing De Chao couldn't stop laughing. So, he repeatedly nodded his head in agreement while he spoke. A white pigeon flew over from the south, and landed on Qing De Chao's shoulder with a whoosh. Qing De Chao took out the message from the bamboo tube, and read it. And he couldn't help but pat his thigh in excitement. "Haha, Your Majesty, you are truly a lucky star. You see, they've also arrived when you came." "Haha. Really?" Second prince got excited, and came closer to look at the parchment. "The heavens are also helping me." Qing De Chao said happily, "Your Majesty, you are indeed a lucky omen. I waited here for several days, and not even the shadow of a ghost arrived. And, now that you came to look for those two men, the good news came in an instant. The chosen are truly different from ordinary men. You are surely chosen by the heavens to be the emperor. You are genuinely favored by the heavens." His words had made it seem as if he was mad at his situation. But the smile on his face was merrier than anyone else's. Ha, the second prince also laughed out of complacency. "Your Majesty, please wait for some time. I will go about a couple of preparations." He. "You are about to obtain those legendary herbs." Qing De Chao out on a courageous appearance, and it seemed that he was ready to face his death. It appeared as if he would even face a mountain of daggers and a sea of flames for the second prince's happiness. He seemed to be made of courage and loyalty. In fact, it seemed as if 10,000 deaths wouldn't prevent him. He would strive with everything he had until the moment he died, as if he would go forwards even if he were faced with millions and millions. Qing De Chao's current facial expressions were sufficient to make him famous if they were to be recorded in the pages of a history book. In fact, his loyalty could become an example for the coming generations. "Senior official Cheng, you must have had a hard time. I'm thankful for the trouble you've taken for me," the second prince said with gratitude. Two tall and sturdy figures were rapidly striding towards them from the distant south. "Second prince, please wait for the good news." Qing De Chao waved his hands as he valiantly rode forward to meet them. His determined face was covered with shades of loyalty and bravery. He then forged towards Tiger King Earthcracker and Bear King Big Bear. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 517. I want to do this. The great young master Qing De Chao made the final preparations for his foolproof plan, and went forward with the intention of welcoming the beast kings of the Tianfa forest. Meanwhile, Jun Moxie also walked out of his residence's gate at the same time. He then leisurely mounted his horse, and prepared to welcome the two beast kings. Jun Moxie was obviously the first to receive the information of Earthcracker and Big Bear's arrival. It was obvious to him that they had arrived to deliver those herbs to him. It must be mentioned that Jun Moxie had always been the first one to receive any information amongst the people present in Tianxiang City. He had even heard about the rampant robbery attempts these two individuals had faced. However, Jun Moxie had only found it very funny. In fact, he had laughed his heart out. This was extremely funny. Two great beast kings from Tianfa Forest are personally escorting these medicines, but they are being treated as easy targets. In fact, they are being treated as popular easy targets. So many people have dared to rob them? How did so many dumb courageous robbers take birth? Has this world gone crazy? How could a tiny ant dare to rob a dinosaur? It must be mentioned that the strength of these two individuals had soared after Jun Moxie had helped them with the enhancement. It could be said that their strength had already surpassed the standard strength of a great master-level expert. In fact, these two individuals possessed enough strength to go where they desired with absolute assurance of safe travel. And this notion stood true as long as they didn't bump into someone as strong as Huang Taiyang. The combined strength of these two individuals might not be sufficient to win against someone like Huang Taiyang. However, these two were still capable of retreating to safety without any hassles in case they were unlucky enough of having such an encounter. Therefore, Jun Moxie wasn't worried that the herbs these two were escorting might meet with a mishap. Instead, he was worried about those tiny ants who were trying to rob these dinosaurs. I feel sorry for them. Men usually don't think things through when there are immense benefits involved. Greed is the original sin. It won't sound pleasant, but these two beast kings shouldn't even think of returning to Tianfa Forest in case they end up being robbed on the way here. Instead, they should buy a piece of tofu and smash their heads open with it. Therefore, young Master Jun wasn't worried about this issue. Instead, he leisurely mounted his horse and carefreely made his way towards the southern gate of the city. His intelligence network was fairly accurate. So, he knew the specific timings when the two beast kings would be arriving in the Tianxiang city. Therefore, he had proceeded towards the city's gate in time, and was likely to meet the two beast kings at the gate itself. His intention was to avoid any unnecessary delays, and invite the two of them back to his residence soon after meeting the two beast kings. He was looking at the beautiful women bustling about in passing while en route to the south gate. This was good exercise for his eyeballs. After all, they had turned blue because he had only been refining pills and practicing for the past few days. Big Bear and Earthcracker breathed a deep sigh of relief. We've finally arrived at the Tianxiang city. It wasn't that they were tired. However, they certainly had traveled a very long distance still. We wouldn't have had to put in so much effort if Crane King or Brother Falcon had come along. A majestic troop of men and horses were marching towards them from the other side of the gate. The troop was headed by a young individual whose eyes were gleaming with enthusiasm. He then cordially cupped one of his fists in the other hand and said from a distance, "Both of you have traveled 1,000 miles. You must be exhausted." The Big Bear and Earthcracker were left stumped for words when they heard this. He talks about the exhausting trip the moment he opens his mouth. Is he trying to worm his way into becoming friends with us? Is this the squad the Jun family has sent? The Bear King straightened up on the horseback. He then asked in a suspicious manner, "Who are you?" He. I'm Chengde Chao. I'm the current emperor of Tianxiang City. Chengde Chao was beaming with smiles. However, he hadn't finished speaking when he was interrupted by the Bear King. Big Bear blinked his massive eyes and he asked in a somewhat doubtful tone, "What? You are the emperor of Tianxiang?" Chengde Chao was left to feel sluggish for a second. What is this man saying? Is this the kind of remark you can make for a joke? One can lose their head over this matter. In fact, one's 9 generations could face criminal charges over this. So, he corrected the matter without any further delay. I'm a senior official with the second prince, the heir to the throne. This was very confusing for the two great beast kings. In fact, they were left feeling dizzy and lightheaded. These two Beast King were creatures with a simple mind, and they spoke as such too. Therefore, even something as simple as Qingde Chao's vernacular language had left their heads spinning. Consequently, Earthcracker asked in a resentful manner since his head felt dizzy, "Don't talk so much. Who the hell are you? Can't you understand a simple question? Who are you? And, why have you stopped us here?" Qingde Chao's complexion turned red with rage, and he cursed them in his thoughts. It turns out that these two barbarians don't understand any etiquettes. Moreover, it seems that they are very stupid. We don't even know each other. So, why would I stop you like this? Do you think it's because I find you very handsome? But, it will be easy to deceive them if they're stupid. Therefore, Qingde Chao forcefully suppressed his anger, and added a little more intimacy to his enthusiastic smile. "I heard that you've come here from a distant land, and you're carrying lots of herbs with you. Hee hee. I found this very interesting. So, I intentionally came down to negotiate a deal with you two heroes. You've come to this faraway land of Tianxiang. So, I presume that you're here to make some money. And, it would be very helpful to your cause if you have the support of the lord of this place. But, I don't know. So, you fancy our herbs, young man?" Big Bear looked at Qingde Chao with the same expression an idiot looks at a corpse. "No. No. The many herbs you two are carrying are all very rare and precious. And, I don't have the ability to buy all of them," Qingde Chao hastily explained. "Our second prince only wishes to buy 2 medicines from you. But, we don't know how you two do a business deal. It doesn't matter how much gold or silver you want in exchange for the drugs. It won't be an issue." Qingde Chao thought. "I've raised the banner of the second prince. And, I've also said that we'll give them a good deal. So, they straightaway give up the herbs out of their fear and trepidation of His Highness's position if they've got a brain. Then, I will diplomatically encourage them, and lead them to meet the second prince. Then, they would be bestowed with a handsome reward. But, it's possible that they're not very intelligent. So, they may fail to appreciate His Highness's kindness. But, I will explain to them that the deal will be made by using large amounts of gold and silver coins. How many country blokes have met the prince? Moreover, how many people have had a business deal with the prince? This would be enough for them to brag about as an honor. Then, there's the matter of the specific price for this deal, but I don't have the final say in this." The second prince. Big Bear gaped. "Did you just say that he was the second son of Tianxiang's emperor?" "Yes. His Highness is the second prince." Qingde Chao was getting more and more intolerant. In fact, he had intentionally emphasized on the word second prince to add more seriousness to his tone. These guys are indeed country bumpkin. Who else could possibly call him the second son? These countryside blokes have no talent. They genuinely don't know any etiquettes of formal speech. We're not interested in selling them. Big Bear's nostrils flared as he shouted, "Hurry up and get lost. You're crazy. How did you dare to be so impudent?" Qingde Chao trembled as he shouted back. It was absolutely unexpected for him that these two savage men had blatantly rejected the second prince's offer. I had already figured that these two men weren't virtuous by nature. In fact, it is possible that they've murdered someone and taken their herbs before arriving here. We will arrest them for this. And, don't hesitate in killing the both of them if they dare to resist. But, be careful. Don't damage the herbs." Qingde Chao's face had become as cold and white as frost by now. He waved his big hand as he gave this command. "Are you still fancying a fight over these herbs? I estimate that the number of people who've tried to take away our herbs on the way here is about 3,000 to 5,000. But, do you know where these people are at present? However, I'm in a very good mood right now because I've reached my destination. So, I might show some kindness if you get out of the way right now. Earthcracker twisted his arm and head to one side, and smiled at Qingde Chao in a manner that made it seem as if he wasn't even smiling. After all, he was finding it funny. The people of this world are too reckless, aren't they? For example, this man must be at the gold Xian level at most. And he's leading a trashy group of people who are barely at the silver Xian level. And he still thinks that he can fight two beast kings of Tian Fa over some herbs. Wouldn't people's teeth fall out from excessive laughter once this got out? This is too funny. I don't need to know where they are, Qingde Chao arrogantly squinted and said, but I know that you are on the grounds of Tianxiang City right now. You're in the territory of the rightful emperor, the son of the heavens. It doesn't matter who you are, or how terrific you are. After all, you are here now. So, you will behave yourself. Even a dragon will serve us here. Even a tiger will prostrate in front of us. Is it possible that you two insignificant people are thinking that you can overturn the heavens? Your strange manner of speech makes it obvious that you're nothing more than thieves. But this young master might show some kindness if you hand over the drug ingredients. In fact, this young master will let you go free. But if you don't hand us the ingredients, He didn't finish his sentence. But it was clear that he had threatened them that he would kill them and take the herbs by force. Tiger King Earthcracker's eyes glared like copper bells. Dragons were a legendary thing, and nobody had seen them in reality. However, tigers were a real thing. And Earthcracker happened to be the Tiger King. Qingde Chao's intention was to use these words as metaphor. But the Tiger King's ear flared when he heard this. And he thought that this tiny ant wanted the great Tiger King to kneel down in front of him and shake his tail. Tiger King slowly squinted. He then asked in a dark tone, "What if I don't prostrate myself? What if I show more impudence? What if you don't prostrate? What if you show more impudence? I will have your blood splashed before you can ever take 5 steps. I will turn you into a corpse on the spot." Qingde Chao was very angry. After all, he had never imagined that this person would ask, "What if I don't prostrate myself," instead of, "How do you want it?" What was the meaning of this? He obviously felt that his dignity had suffered damage. Therefore, he suddenly got furious, and started whistling to make his troops charge forward. After all, he wanted these two men captured since they were thinking too highly of themselves. It was possible that he may not go as far as splashing their blood before they had taken 5 steps. However, he certainly wanted to give them a sound beating before taking any further. Wait, a majestic sound was heard as the second prince slowly started to walk towards them. He had a genial smile on his face. "Two heroes, I'm the second prince of Tianxiang." "Heroes, you mother!" Earthcracker burst out. The Tiger King felt that he had suffered the greatest of insults. So, he got angry. "What is this, prince, nonsense? What is this bullshit? Is this emperor's son that terrific? Feck! You dared to insult me? I want to. The Tiger King was very powerful, but he was kind of slow-witted. He genuinely thought of something to say for a long time, but couldn't come up with anything. And this left him to feel very depressed. Forget it. Setting into action is always the practical thing to do. So, he reached out with his hand with whoosh. His arm stretched out like a spring when pulled open, while his shoulder and head remained motionless. He then suddenly grabbed that annoying Qingde Chao. Then, Earthcracker opened his mouth like a sacrificial bowl, and snapped the youngster's neck with a bite. "I want to do this." A fountain of blood spurted out. The Tiger King's mouth was soaked in blood, and he had a fierce-looking expression on his face. However, his Xian strength was protecting his body. So, not even a single drop of blood landed on his body. He then opened his mouth and spat out the lump of meat he had in his mouth. The piece of flesh fell on the ground with a plop. He then cursed, "Bah! How can this man's flesh be so stinky?" Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 518. Country bumpkins enter a big city. He was a tiger. So, his first instinct was to bite. But, he had only opened his mouth to have his meals ever since he had become a beast king. And, this was particularly true after he had gained the ability to transform into a humanoid form. Thereupon, he had stopped using his mouth to attack. After all, he felt that such actions would be a disgrace for someone with a status as high the one he now possessed. But, his anger had reached unbearable levels today. So, he had acted out of his primal instinct. And, he had bitten Cheng De Chao's neck in order to kill him. Everyone was left petrified by this. Everyone was struck dumb, and everyone was left stupefied. What's going on? Is this a nightmare? How could something like that happen under the bright and blue dome of heaven? Cheng De Chao was a great young master. So, he was always brimming with a sense of prestige and self-confidence. It had always seemed as if he had just attained some extraordinary accomplishment. His conduct had always been extremely arrogant, and his tone had always been very condescending. How could he have thought that this barbaric man would respond to his words by biting and tearing apart his neck? However, the party opposite to Cheng De Chao had bitten his neck apart. Everyone had seen men eating wild beasts. It was rare to see a beast eating a man, but many people had still seen it. However, this man had eaten another man. This thing was so weird that no one had even heard of it since antiquity. However, this unheard thing had suddenly happened in front of everyone. Cheng De Chao's neck was still choking while issuing toot, toot sounds. And, the blood was foaming out from the man. But, the man's silence had made it evident that he had already died. Second Prince's eyes remained wide open for a very long time. In fact, they had even seemed bigger than Earthcracker's massive eyes. He then stretched out one trembling finger, and said only one word, "You." Then, he suddenly bent down, and, blurg, blurg. He vomited and vomited. This sound was like a terribly contagious virus. And, everyone had seemingly been infected with this virus for a moment. Everyone bowed their head to vomit. The filthy and pungent smell had spread in from outside the southern gate of the city in no time. And, the entire ground had turned into a puddle of things that had come out from intestines of the spectators. Jun Moxie, young Master Jun, arrived at this exact moment by coincidence. High horses even slipped by the time he reached the gate. However, he was shocked to see so many people around, and couldn't help but inquire about what was happening there. Consequently, he came to know that the second prince had arrived to exploit this great opportunity with the intention of taking away some herbs from this batch. Therefore, young Master Jun's eyeball revolved in order to look for a corner to hide. Let's examine the situation first. After all, it's not always a good idea to break the laws, right? Earthcracker's face appeared innocent as he looked at the ground. He then looked at Big Bear, scratched his head, and asked, "Fourth brother, what happened to these people? Why on earth are these people vomiting? And, why did they do it at the same time?" Big Bear had been rendered speechless. So, he covered his forehead with his hands. This guy is so stupid that it disgusts me to death. I'm never going on a trip with him, even if someone beats me to death over it. This is too embarrassing. It doesn't matter what you do. You can't rob our stuff even if you're the emperor's son. After all, it is wrong to rob other people's stuff. Didn't the emperor your father ever teach you something this basic? Earthcracker grinned as he said this with righteous conviction. He then licked the blood from his teeth. The second prince finally stopped vomiting. Then, his face and lips turned white, and he yelled, "Come on everyone. Teach these two homicidal maniacs some discipline for my sake. Cut their corpse into countless pieces with your swords. But, ensure that the herbs aren't harmed in any way." The hands and feet of the imperial bodyguards shivered as they lifted their swords. Wait, the second prince's imperial bodyguards were genuine Jade Xian peak experts. So, they may not have eaten pork, but they had seen pigs running here and there. Therefore, they rushed up, "Your Majesty, we mustn't act with haste. We should consider this matter at length first." These people had spoken up about considering this matter at length, but Big Bear and Earthcracker didn't feel the same way. They had been delayed several times over their journey. But, how could they allow themselves to be blocked at the Tianxiang city's gate? After all, wouldn't the Jun family laugh at the beast kings of Tianfa Forest if they came to know about this? You didn't even have the strength to suppress a team of soldiers? Ha! Big Bear exhaled as he took one big step, and pounded his foot on the ground. His big foot fell heavily on the ground, and the ground was left to rumble with a loud sound. Even the ripples his big foot made on the ground were clearly visible to the naked eyes. The entire ground quivered, so much so that the city walls of Tianxiang City were left to sway a little. Consequently, some dust fell down from the city's wall with a rustling sound. Then, his angry roar was heard, "Everyone get lost." This furious roar had been supplied with a concentrated force of Big Bear's primary strength. Therefore, it seemed as if an enormous tsunami had engulfed the entire vicinity. Whoever bore the brunt of it felt as if everything had gone black before their eyes. This sound slammed into their ears with a bang, and their feet left the ground with a whoosh. Then, they were sent out flying. A few people were sent out flying a bit too far. They then landed on the ground with a squishing sound. Their bodies had started to look like dried-out steamed bread that had been thrown against the surface of a smooth wall. They lay motionless on the ground. However, blood was seeping out of all the 7 apertures of their head. The people who were standing far away had been rendered dizzy and dazzled upon witnessing the scene. Their swords had made clanging sounds as they had fallen to the ground. And they had an expression of extreme pain on their faces. The second prince's tragedy was very mournful. After all, the place where he had been standing wasn't an ideal position since it was very close to the source of that sound. So, he was obviously flung to fly by that wave of energy. His bodyguards had Jade Xian's strength, but they hadn't even gotten the time to look after themselves. Therefore, they let the second prince fall to the ground. His entire body twitched for some time thereafter. Then, his lower body suddenly released a stench, and his robes got wet with a white and yellow liquid. His Highness had suffered from a moment of incontinence from both his front and backside. The dissatisfied Earthcracker moved closer and said, "Fourth brother, you are too violent. You didn't leave anyone for me to play with. Play with the dead. You even started eating people. What dongade fun are you talking about?" Big Bear wanted to slap the Tiger King to death. This guy is too big a nut job. This is the capital city. The two of us obviously don't care about anything that happens here, but we still have to go to the Jun family. It's true that we don't care, but that doesn't mean that the Jun family's people won't care about this either. What if this matter causes some losses to the Jun family, and we end up inviting the dissatisfaction of that mysterious master? However, the Big Bear had overlooked the fact that his actions had been far stronger than those of the Tiger King. In fact, his loud and thunderous sound from him had provoked a lot of trouble. It was true that Earthcracker had killed one man. But, that man had only been a sidekick. However, This bear king had frightened the prince into staining his robes yellow and white. The two men talked no more. Even a tiger walks like a dragon when the hawks are watching its back. Therefore, the two men waltzed into the city as if there was no one around. Suddenly a voice said, "Oh, oh, oh." It turns out that the two brave heroes have personally arrived here. This is indeed very formal of you. This Jun Xie didn't come to greet you on time. Please forgive me for it. Young Master Jun's tone was very high-spirited and elegant. He then elegantly walked out with a wholehearted smile. Jun Xie. Both of them had seen Jun Xie before. And that was back when Jun Xie was given a solid spanking by Venerable Mei. Therefore, they obviously weren't unfamiliar with him. However, they certainly weren't able to figure out that this handsome and elegant youngster was the same mysterious master who had bossed them around in the Tianfa forest earlier. That's right. That's right. It's rare for two such brave heroes to remember me. Please come. Please come. Please come. Jun Xie politely extended his hands in a welcoming gesture. Ha ha ha. Jun youngster, did your master ask you to come here? Big Bear shrugged his nose and asked. That's right. Master sent me to receive the guests. He also told me that fourth elder bear is an old friend of his. The mischievous sound of Jun Xie's laughter accompanied those of the two guests. That's right. We're friends. Old friends. Big Bear and Earthcracker's faces lit up. Then, Big Bear's huge hand landed on Jun Xie's shoulder, and he patted the youngster. I was with your master outside the Tianxian city one time. It is said that friendships are often made after fights. I had fought 3 rounds with him. But, we couldn't decide who won. So, we had made a bet to decide the winner. What? You were able to contend 3 rounds with my master? Then, you must be stronger than the great master level at the very least. I admire your strength. I genuinely do. Jun Xie held his laughter back. But, what happened in that bet? Big Bear's face turned red as he replied, There's nothing embarrassing in saying that your master is stronger than this Big Bear. He then suddenly lowered his voice, and whispered to Jun Xie's ear, but, pissing. Your master is a highly skilled person. But, he's not as good as this Big Bear when it comes to that. Jun Xie somewhat stumbled for a moment. This man even has the guts to say something like this. Any outsider would indeterminately think Jun Xie's master in a very wretched image if they were to hear about this. After all, that image would consist of a peerless master getting into a childish pissing competition with this burly man. This would indeed make for an eternal anecdote. They reached the city's gates. And, Jun Xie unenthusiastically instructed the gatekeepers, officers, why haven't the bunch of you rushed to help His Majesty the Second Prince? Help him clean up. And, tell him that he can come to the Jun family and find me in case he has any issues or dissatisfactions about this. Now kindly open the gates, and let us in. The soldiers who stood as gatekeepers formed into a straight line, and repeatedly nodded their heads in compliance. In fact, they were only able to wipe off their cold sweat once they had seen Jun Xie enter through the city's gate with these 2 men. Who in this Tianxiang city would dare to provoke this third young master of the Jun family? Who would be that tired of living? He had opened a proper slaughterhouse when he had returned from the southern heaven city. In fact, even the blind had been able to witness those massacres. Moreover, we had been present here at that time, and we had witnessed it with our own eyes. Plus, his friends are no less. One of them even ate a person. Bird of a feather flock together. I guess the same goes for men as well. However, young Master Jun had acted very brazenly this time as well. After all, the second prince was lying there at the ground. But, he hadn't even turned his head to look that man. This was Big Bear's second visit to Tianxiang City. So, the city's proceedings weren't very strange for him. But, the great beast King Earthcracker had gotten the chance to expand his horizons for the first time. And, his big skull had been left dazzled by the arrangements of the city. The Tianxiang city was the capital city. So, how could it have been inferior to any other city? In fact, it was at least 10 times more flourishing than any other city these two had passed on their way. However, the Tiger King had never seen anything like this before. Therefore, he couldn't stop himself from clicking his tongue while reading aloud the things that he came across. Fourth brother. This street is so wide, tsk. You see that, what does that do? Earthcracker asked out of curiosity. Big Bear let out a stuffy snort. Fourth brother. Take a look at that cloth's material. It is much smoother than the animal's skin on my body. Tsk. Earthcracker exclaimed in admiration as he touched the silk fabric. Bear King's face turned black out of annoyance. Fourth brother, dang it. Look over there. Dang it. They're thinking of doing business with the Xian beast's items. They're courting death. The Tiger King stood up in resentment. Black lines had emerged across Big Bear's entire face. Fourth brother. Look at the bright shining thing. How about we buy one? Tiger King flashed a smile of flattery. Can you shut your mouth? Can you? Okay. Bear King glared at him since he had lost his patience. Then, he grabbed the collar of the Tiger King's jacket and roared in a lowered tone, I will kill you if you say another word. So, you want to die? Well? You are such a shameless thing. Don't talk to me again. I also know nothing about the things you don't know about. I am that. Tiger King didn't know how he had offended his fourth elder brother. What did I do? And, why is he making such a fuss about these things? He couldn't help but be bewildered. He knew that Big Bear had been carrying the airs of senior the entire route. After all, his face had been reserved and apathetic. In fact, he had been looking on at everything in a calm manner while walked alongside Jun Moxie as well. Therefore, everything had seemed normal to anyone who was an outsider. In fact, it was as if he was saying, I've got these kinds of things in my house as well. I even have better ones. But, he had only done so in order to put on the airs in front of his friend's disciple. After all, wouldn't it be embarrassing for him if wasn't able to pretend being a brother master in front of Jun Moxie? However, Earthcracker's country bumpkin-like ruckus throughout the entire route had eventually forced this fourth master bear to act out. Isn't this going to ruin my reputation? Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 519. Big. However, his actions were causing a huge damage to the Bear King's image of a great individual. So, how would he not wish to teach this guy a lesson? The Tiger King hung his head down once the lecture was over, and didn't say another word. Big Bear's mannerism again became poised and graceful. He then smiled at Jun Moxie, and spoke up, this isn't worth mentioning about, Tone, my younger brother has never gone outside our home. That's why he's still little stupid since he hasn't seen the outside world yet. Fortunately, there's still time to teach him a thing or two with some brute force. So, I brought him along to porter the herbs on the way. Our family's education system isn't very strict. So, young Master Jun might find this matter slightly ridiculous. Oh, there's nothing to worry about. Jun Moxie wanted to laugh until his belly had been damaged. But, he decided to hold it back. This was obviously very difficult for him. They arrived at the Jun family's residence after a long and pleasant walk through the city. Then, young Master Jun politely welcomed the two men inside his residence. Bear King walked in with the arrogance of a senior and didn't even glance sideways. However, he had shot a look of warning to Earthcracker. He had intended to convey, your etiquettes mustn't fail inside that mysterious Master Senior Feng's territory. After all, that would make everyone look down on us. You mustn't forget that we are this generation's beast kings at the end of the day. Earthcracker understood the meaning and decided to follow suit. Therefore, he too entered the residence with his head held high and chest out. Both of them were moving forward with giant strides and had a serious expression on their faces. They weren't even indulging in casual chit-chat or smiling. In fact, their valiance and enthusiastic made it seem as if they were on a battlefield. Their demeanor also caused a green-robed figure to flash past in the courtyard in front of them. This green-robed individual was very familiar with these two beast kings, and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise in the context of their unexpected arrival. Then, this figure disappeared from there. But, the two beast kings weren't even able to discover her presence. Well, they weren't able to do so with clarity at least. These two beast kings possessed enough cultivation to discover that it was the Snake King if they hadn't been so focused on their artificial etiquette. However, these two individuals were very focused on keeping up with the proper standards of being revered masters. Therefore, they weren't able to discover her. Earthcracker's eyes had certainly turned to look, but he was only able to look at that figure from behind. He then analyzed it in his thoughts. This girl's butts aren't so tiny. They were led to Jun Moxie's small courtyard, and were requested to take seat around a stone table therein. The two beast kings obviously didn't fear the cold weather. Therefore, they didn't think why they weren't invited to enter the dining room. Consequently, they sat down around the stone table in the courtyard without any qualms about anything. Little Ko served them with aromatic tea. The Tiger King was extremely thirsty due to the long journey. So, he picked up the teacup with his hands, and opened its lid. He then raised his head, and gulped the liquid down to his belly along with the tea leaves. He was obviously didn't the temperature of the hot tea. He even chewed some tea leaves, and stretched his neck to swallow them down. Then, he smacked his lips and said, "Why was this thing a little bitter?" "Well, how can they put tree leaves in the water? This is a bad habit. I've heard that there's a tasty drink called tea. Why didn't we bring that out?" The Bear King had a sudden impulse to break out. He tilted his head a little, and squinted at the Tiger King. He had basically signaled the Tiger King to shut up. Then, he elegantly picked up the teacup, and softly opened its lid. He then lightly twirled the teacup to stir the tea. He gently puffed at the tea, and said, "The tea is very nice." The Bear King had spoken softly after he had taken a small sip of the tea. Moreover, his face made it seem as if he was enjoying the lingering aftertaste of the tea. Even, his posture was as graceful and elegant as a nobleman. He had already gone out into the human world once before. So, he knew what tea was, and what the rules of drinking tea were. Bear King then tilted his head, and looked at the Tiger King. He had intended to convey, "Look at me, and see how I drink tea. You are very embarrassing. However, I'm somewhat regretful in my heart. The ways of these humans are extremely troublesome. The sip I had to take was so tiny that I didn't even feel my lips getting wet. So, it obviously couldn't quench my thirst." He couldn't help but envy the Tiger King as this thought crossed his mind. Pretending to be a senior is so difficult. Earthcracker Tiger King stared blankly at first. Is this thing what they call tea? The Tiger King had only learnt about drinking human wine. And, he figured that tea was also the same. But, how did the fourth brother learn about drinking tea? And, How on earth haven't I seen him drinking tea like this on the way here? In fact, it seems that even his buttocks are seated on the wooden chairs in an orderly manner. A white figure gently came over at this moment. It didn't even make any sounds while it walked. Then, this individual asked in a deep voice, "How on earth have the two of you arrived here?" Big Bear was holding the cup while sitting in an elegant posture when he heard this voice. He suddenly felt that this voice was somewhat familiar. So, he casually turned around and said, "This senior loves to travel free and wide in this world of mortals. He appreciates the beauty of rivers and mountains. So, how could he not arrive here?" Suddenly, he saw the approaching figure with clarity, and his entire body started to shiver as a result. Then, he jumped in fright as the sounds of scream came from his mouth. The teacup fell to the ground with a pop and broke into pieces. His complexion turned deathly white, and beads of sweat started to roll down from his head. His hands and feet shivered as he tried to open his big mouth. But, it seemed as if he was weeping and smiling at the same time. He then stammered, "Big. Big big. Big big." Earthcracker was startled by this. He thought, has fourth brother Bear seen a ghost? He then turned around with a look of dissatisfaction on his face, and said, "Fourth brother, why on earth are you stuttering like this?" He hadn't even completed his sentence when he looked up. However, his mouth fell wide open as he looked at the beautiful and charming woman in front. Her face was so beautiful that it seemed as if it had been carved very meticulously. But, he also couldn't help himself from letting out a shriek as his complexion turned deathly white in an instant. His lips started to tremble, and he was left bewildered. He then followed in Bear Big's suit, and started to stutter out loud, "Big. Big. Big big big." This stuttering turned out to be contagious. These two tall and strong men were looking like a pair of idiots at the moment. And, they were only saying one word in a loop. In fact, they had been frightened to such an extent that they couldn't even complete their sentences. Jun Moxie frowned and shook his head. He thought to himself, what are these two doing? Why are they repeating "big big big" in a loop? However, young Master Jun wasn't aware of the conflicted thoughts that were spiraling inside the minds of these two simple-minded beast kings. So, the big in our family should be called Big Sister? Or should we still call her Big Brother? Therefore, the two of them continued to say, "Big. Big," for a long time. But, they couldn't complete their sentence after this "big" part. "You two are a pair of idiots. You have no understanding of etiquettes. Don't you know how to address the Big Sister? You are making a joke of yourself in front of strangers for no reason. What is this, big big? Did your brains get smashed between the doors? Or are they clogged with water instead?" The Snake King's voice was heard at the right moment, and it came as a perfect solution for both of them. "Big Sister." Big Bear wiped his sweat and shouted out loud. He didn't even pay any attention to the fact that he had been mocked by the Snake King a second ago. After all, he was able to say this proper term of address out loud because of it. So, wasn't her mockery worth it? It must be said that this senior beast king from the Tianfa forest could speak up without any inhibitions even if he were to be confronted with countless people. After all, he was capable of turning the world upside down. However, even saying a few big words had left his entire body to sweat at this moment. "Big. Big big." The Tiger King was still under the spell of the shock. He was obviously very desperate at heart, and wanted to shout these two words, "Big Sister." But, his mouth didn't seem willing to obey his commands, and he continued to yell, "Big. Big," in a loop for a long time. He then lifted his huge hand, and ferociously landed a slap on his own face out of annoyance. Then, he shouted, "I will call you Big Big. You stupid tiger. You are extremely embarrassing. Snake King got so furious that it seemed as if she wanted to teach that idiot a lesson. Oh. I don't want the two of you to be conducting yourself like this again. Any damage to your reputation is equivalent to a loss in prestige for our TNFA when you're out in the world like this. Mei Shuayan waved her hand in a dignified manner to gesture as if she didn't care about it. Then, she came over and sat opposite to these two men. She then gently wrinkled her eyebrows and asked, "Hurry up and tell me. What are you guys doing here? Oh. And, how are you? What kind of a person was this beautiful woman named Mei?" She had instantly sensed that Bear King's strength level had increased. She had obviously sensed that he had made a successful breakthrough as well. His newfound strength was still far short of her own, but she assessed that it had surpassed the Snake King's strength by a margin. All three of them used to be at the same level not long ago. But, fourth brother Bear King's strength has surpassed that of the rest of the Beast Kings now. This is a good thing when it comes to the TNFA forest, but it is still a troublesome matter. After all, the Bear Kings had been stuck at the bottleneck for many years. Therefore, this accidental breakthrough must have happened because of some happy encounter. However, Mei Shuayan had been obstructed from asking about this by the presence of a stranger Jun Moxie. This was astonishing news, but she couldn't inquire about this now. She had been astounded by this realization for a second, but she had managed to cover up very quickly. In fact, none of the many people present on the scene were able to notice it. We came. Both the Beast Kings finally returned to their senses, and hurriedly sat upright in a respectful manner. In fact, they were now seated in the same manner primary school students sit when they suddenly see their class teacher enter the classroom. But they recalled their leader's question soon after. And the two big Beast Kings suddenly jumped up as a result. They then grabbed those huge parcels in a flurry, and tore them open in a hurry as they said, Big sister, take a look at this one. And this one. And that one." Earthcracker blinked his innocent eyes and cried out, We came to do this. To do this." Mei Shuayan's eyes suspiciously swept over that pile of herbs on the table. Then, she suddenly got agitated. "What is this? Give me a clear answer. I asked you, why did you come here? What are you doing here? You came for this. Are you messing with me?" A poof sound was heard as Earthcracker tumbled to the ground. His complexion had turned deathly white, and lips had started to tremble. In fact, he had gotten so scared that his brain had short-circuited. He nearly started to weep. No. I wouldn't dare to mess with you. We came to do this." A power that had been accumulated for centuries had pressed down upon them. Consequently, the Tiger King had gotten so foolishly frightened by his eldest sibling's violent anger that he had almost thought of reverting to his original form. He wanted to do this so that he could shake his tail in order to beg for forgiveness. "Oh. So, you came here to deliver these herbs." Mei Shuayan finally understood the meaning behind the words they had spat out with such difficulty. She then let out a faint smile, and both the Beast Kings relaxed to some extent. But, she then raised her eyebrows in suspicion once again, and asked, "How on earth did you know that you have to deliver these herbs? I obviously didn't send any information back." The beautiful Mei still hadn't completed her sentence when her mind set into action. "I still haven't sent any information about this place. But, they've already arrived here to deliver large quantities of herbs. This is strange. There must be some other reason behind this. And, what's with this accidental breakthrough of big bears? Does it have some connection with this?" She was a very intelligent person. She had even analyzed the entire incident through 8 or 9 different angles in an instant. And, it must be said that her assumptions weren't very far away from the reality. Bear King's tongue finally got untied, but he still remained stunned. He tweaked his ears and scratched his head in anxiety. After all, he didn't how to speak about this. So, he considered some ways of speaking out this, and prepared for a while. He then mumbled, "Big sister, you don't know about this. This is about third brother Crane and my encounter with Senior Fong. I had told you about that senior's remarkable powers, right? We were able to enhance our strength in a very smooth manner because of his help. He had come to the Tian Fa forest at that time. And, he also told us to collect herbs for the remarkable medicines he is preparing for us. He had asked us to deliver these herbs to the Jun family's residence. His pills will increase our strength. He is too amazing. He helped us in advancing our levels. Moreover, he also cured the 6th and 7th brothers' old problem. So, they can turn into their human forms now. His magical powers are simply remarkable. He is simply one of a kind in the entire world. In fact, I believe that even you wouldn't be able to match up to him." Snake King didn't like this when she heard it. "Fourth brother Bear, what nonsense are you talking about? Are you saying that this Fong guy is stronger than the big sister?" That Fong guy had snatched the 1,000 evil and 10,000 poisons fruit from the Snake King's hands. That matter was certainly a good thing for her, but her heart still harbored some resentment in that regard. The Bear King quickly realized his mistake. So, he rushed to remedy it. "I didn't mean that. I wanted to say that big sister stand no chance in front of Senior Fong. Sorry. I'll repeat. Senior Fong is far better than big sister." Please subscribe to this channel, so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 520. The Greatness of a Good Man's Passion. You. Snake King was enraged by this stupidity. This fool has again and again stated that big sister is inferior to that Fong guy. She wanted to step forward and fix the Bear King. Snake King, wait for a while. Master Fong is indeed a skilled man. He genuinely possesses remarkable ability. In fact, it's not improper to say that I may not be able to match up. Fourth brother Bear, you said that you and third brother Crane have both had a successful breakthrough? Also, 6th and 7th brothers' old problem has been treated, and they can transform into their human forms again? Mei Shuayan had been greatly startled by this. After all, this matter of breaking through had always been a subject of one's own destiny. The Bear King had already broken through his bottleneck, and Mei Shuayan was very happy for him. Then, she had heard that her third brother Crane King had also experienced a breakthrough. Moreover, the Lion King and the Monkey King had also recovered from that age-old serious injury of theirs. It must be said that these series of good news had left the beautiful Mei rather ecstatic. And, that's not all of it. In fact, Senior Fong only agreed to do this for us because he acknowledges this big bear's honor and reputation. Then, Senior Fong even agreed to help us refine some good pills. Therefore, Tiger King and I came here to deliver these. Otherwise, why would we come this far to play around? The Bear King saw that the big sister had approved their actions. So, he obviously heaped praises on himself. It turns out that this wasn't your fault. In fact, you've done pretty well, Mei Shuayan smiled with ease. Therefore, the two Beast Kings finally wiped their sweat in unison. Good mother. We've finally crossed this difficult obstacle. But, how on earth did we run into our eldest sibling at this place? However, Mei Shuayan puckered up her eyebrows soon after. Moreover, her entire face was painted in colors of anger again. But, it was directed towards Jun Moxie this time. Jun Moxie. It turns out that your master and fourth brother Bear already know each other. In fact, he already has friendly relations with the Beast Kings of my Tian Fa forest. But, you hateful boy have been putting on the airs of righteousness over the past few days, and you've been telling me about all the pleading you've had to do in front of your master. How exactly have you been pleading your master to help us out? I need you to explain this to me. You have too much courage. Jun Moxie had been observing these talks from the sidelines with the cold eye of a bystander. And, he had been thinking. Mei Shuiyan's attitude makes it seem as if her status in the Tianfa forest is fairly high. In fact, she may be just below Venerable Mei in terms of authority. It's not surprising that she can use a technique as amazing as the world cage. In fact, oppressing experts who are above the great master level is like a child's play for her. However, the situation suddenly changed while he was lost in these thoughts. In fact, the issue had turned towards his head now. And, he was left scared and stunned as he realized this. He had been using this excuse to take cheap advantages of Mei Shuiyan for the past few days. But, this issue was raised so suddenly that he couldn't respond for a moment. The Bear King had certainly exaggerated things, but Jun Moxie couldn't refute it. After all, he couldn't tell that I'm that phone guy. You people need to look up at me in reverence. Big Bear and Earthcracker didn't know that the young man before their eyes was that same Master Phone with whom they had drunk and chatted that day in Tianfa. However, they had finally been provided an opportunity to show off at this time. So, they stood up without thinking, and spoke with a fierce and murderous look on their faces. You boy. You have a lot of courage. You even dared to mess with our big sister. Shut up, do you two idiots even know what's going on here? Go and sit in one corner, you fools. Mei Shuiyan, she shouted at them since she wasn't in a good mood. And, both of them drooped their head as a result. What's the matter? How did our bootlicking get us a kick instead? He. Jun Moxie laughed awkwardly a few times at first. He then said, I wasn't my intention. This is entirely because of you, Miss Mei. But, I'm genuinely sincere towards you, Miss Mei. Only heavens can see this affection of mine. And, the heavens are witness to it. Moreover, I've already been molested by Miss Mei several times. Anyway, it's alright since I've responded in a similar manner. Everyone knows. Jun Moxie secretly observed the facial expressions of Big Bear and Earthcracker as he said this out loud. He saw that the expression on the faces of these two individuals had gradually turned into fascination. Their big eyes had slowly gotten wider. And, they had continued to grow bigger and bigger. Their mouths had also opened wide, and they seemed extremely amazed. In fact, their expression were those of disbelief. Then, saliva dripped from their respective mouths, and fell to the ground with pop and pop. Even the sound of their saliva falling was clearly audible. Both of them groaned since they had thought of the same things. What? For goodness sake. Is something wrong with our hearing ability? How on earth did we hear this earth-shattering thing? Did Big Sister genuinely take the initiative to be indecent to him? For God's sake. Let me die. This is extremely crazy. This is too unreal. Am I in the midst of a terrifying nightmare? Our big sister assaulted a man indecently? What did you say? What did you say just now? Mei Shuiyan suddenly flipped out. After all, so much had been spoken in front of 3 of her subordinates. How could she bear this? Isn't it true? I've only stated the facts. Jun Moxie yelled as if he had been falsely accused. You obviously didn't ask for my permission that day. Instead, you forcefully kissed me. And, I was unable to restrain my emotions as a result. So, I also kissed you back. Moreover, you groped me. I also groped you back. You even stroked my ass for a while. And I also stroked your ass. But this is the incorruptible truth. Bang! Bang! There were two loud bangs as the massive heads of Big Bear and Earthcracker simultaneously smashed down to the table in a freefall. In fact, it seemed as if their backbones had given away. Then, they bounced up and down on the table a few times. The Snake King also stood stunned on one side. We could search everywhere between the heavens and hell. We could search the four seas. But we'll never find someone more shameless than this guy in the entire history. I was there at that time, you know. This guy was being a rogue, and the other person had resolutely smacked his buttocks for his behavior. And he's reiterated that smacking as gentle stroking at this time. Don't say it again. Mei Shuiyan's face flushed red. But it wasn't clear whether she was angry or bashful. However, the tone of her voice had made it sound as if she had blown her top in rage. I've always been plain and indifferent. I don't like revealing my feelings when I'm angry. But how is this boy able to incite my anger so easily every time? Moreover, I know that I won't be able to say anything to him while arguing on this subject. And I will eventually have to stop arguing. In fact, I think it's strange that I'm even thinking about it. After all, how did I even get entangled in this line of thought when confronted with this trivial accusation? She suddenly realized something as the train of her thoughts took a turn that's repulsive. This guy's has changed the subject again. Why shouldn't I say it? Why can't I say it? It's out of question to be silent about this today. I am going to fight today. Why should I suffer in silence when you acted so indecently towards me? Do you think that you can just wipe the plate clean and leave or you're done eating the good food? It's impossible. You have to take responsibility towards me. Jun Moxie's face was painted in colors of righteousness and sternness. It genuinely seemed that he felt that he had been wronged. World Cage. Mei Shuiyan had gotten so angry that she had started emitting smoke from each of her 7 orifices. She then grabbed Jun Moxie and disappeared like a wisp of smoke. Even their shadow couldn't be seen anymore. Big Bear and Earthcracker shook their heads as if they had gotten drunk on wine. However, they still felt dizzy. So, they shook their heads again. They then blankly looked at each other and asked in unison, "Were we dreaming just now, right?" Then, they looked towards Green Hunter on the side and asked, "Green Hunter, the young sister, is this true?" "It is true." Snake King nodded her head in a foul mood. It was evident that she was fuming as well. That Jun Moxie was telling the truth. Is he going to become our eldest sister's husband? Bear King winked at Earthcracker, and the latter's mouth curved into a smile. It was obvious that they were hoping to see a reaction from the Snake King. "I don't know." "Why don't you ask Big Sister?" "Don't ask me again. I don't know anything." She then suddenly stood up and turned to leave. Both of them looked at each other and said at the same time, "The spring of Big Sister's life has finally arrived. That boy deserves to be called Senior Feng's disciple. He's truly a profound mystery himself. We are nothing in front of him." Jun Moxie returned to this setting after long time while baring his teeth. But it turned out that he had reappeared in the front of 2 Beast Kings. Jun Moxie tried to squeeze out a smile as the huge eyes of the Beast Kings sized him up. He then said, "Oh dear, your big sister has a tendency of doing that. She has a beautiful face, and her figure is even better. But her temper is a bit frail. Plus, she gets so angry when we talk about this. Passionate love is a free-flowing aspect of life. It is inevitable and proper. Also, it's a normal matter of life. But This temper of hers is a problem. I will have to change that about her. That's right. That's right. It's very extreme. It's very extreme. Big Bear and Earthcracker nodded in the same manner hens peck rice. They nodded in admiration as they looked at this youngster. They couldn't help but sigh in their thoughts. This man is indeed very powerful. He even wants to fix our big sister's nature. He is genuinely enigmatic and impossible to predict. He's a true hegemon. The attitudes of the two beast kings had suddenly undergone great transformations. In fact, they even felt somewhat humbled in his presence. This youngster surely wasn't their senior, but he was their big sister's future husband. The most hateful thing is that your big sister is dreaded by her own Xian beast body. So, she isn't ready to be with me. She says that she's afraid that people might laugh at her. I genuinely can't understand this. Ah! Why should two people be afraid of this society if they sincerely love each other? Especially in this world where the strongest fist is the absolute justification. In fact, we don't even need to use our fist as a means of communication. Moreover, I don't even mind this. So, why she can't figure things out? You tell me, isn't this logical? Jun Moxie used tea instead of wine in the hope of drowning out his worries. That is true. Big Bear patted on his thigh. How does being a Xian beast matter? Xian beasts are much stronger than men. So, why should we care about them? I ask you to feel reassured about this. We will support you in your pursuit of happiness. This big bear will twist and break the neck of any person who dares to oppose you. That's right. We will twist and break their necks. Earthcracker rolled up his sleeves as his face lit up with excitement. Oh! That's easier said than done. Jun Moxie said in a somewhat despaired tone, after all, your big sister's body still remains a critical issue. It seems that I still need to put in a great amount of effort. After all, only stone and metal are capable of grinding together. But, I'm confident in that regard. I believe that your big sister's life will be full of happiness that with my great effort and most sincere affection. I have even decided that we won't live in this human world for the sake of your big sister's happiness. Instead, we will go and live in the Tianfa forest in the future. Young Master Jun spoke till here. Then, he raised his head and puffed out his chest in a manner so heroic that it seemed as if he was determined to remove every obstacle. He wanted to fight for victory. His posture was heroic, and the expressions on his face were sincere, honest, and passionate. The two beast kings suddenly found themselves moved by this. This man is ready to give up the glory, splendor, and pleasures of this human world for the sake of our big sister's happiness. He's even willing to live in the Tianfa forest. This sacrifice is worthy of admiration. Jun Moxie. This is the most supreme passion of a man. And a good man at that. The two of us never thought that we would ever get to witness such a great and true love. This love story will inevitably become legendary. It will be passed down through ages. It will surely be written in the pages of history. How can we allow such a deep feeling of love to die midway? How can we not help this sincere and passionate romance accomplish its goal? This story will be continued to chapter 521. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.